All right, so we're live. ETM Hotep, which means welcome and peace. Welcome to the Sesh mdw-ntr YouTube channel. Appreciate all 22,000 of you all who are tuned in already. That means that the notification is working. And we also let everyone know that we're going to be streaming live tonight on this Friday evening. So, again, this is your brother Wujao, but I have other members of the Sesh along with me on the panel. So I'm going to pass the mic and make sure everyone introduce themselves.
ETM Hotel. Welcome in peace, everybody. It's your brother June. Just want to say thanks for tuning in. Hope you guys appreciate the show. Please help the channel and the show with the thumbs up and check the description box for links and resources. Hotel.
Hotep, Ren-E, Imiket, and I'll just like to welcome you all to the show as well.
Hotep, it's brother Satep and Ra. Hope everybody enjoy the show.
All right. So, we're gonna jump in, and so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna frame up the conversation like we've done in the past two. This is part 3. So the title of our discussion is "Solutions to the Community's Kemetic Conflicts," Part 3, and so this is our third discussion, and our final one at that. So after this one, we're not gonna be talking about this in this way. So in order to frame up the conversation for tonight, we want to go back to how we framed up the conversation on the first night, part 1. And if you noticed, we are discussing the Kemetic conflicts, and by Kemetic conflicts, I'm talking about the recent kind of back and forth that's been going on between members of the temples and shrines practicing Kemetic practitioners, and then those who don't. And as far as content or context, I named 6 names just so that people will know what it is that we're talking about in a more specific way. And I'm going to name these names, but I don't name them to shed good or bad light on any of the names, just for context. So we have Brother Garfield, Brother Unk, Brother Reggie. Then we have Baba Heru, Brother Jabari, and Brother Sanjeti. Okay, so it almost seemed like a 3-on-3. But I only named the names because if you're familiar with the various different videos and interviews or live streams lately, you pretty much know what we're talking about. All right. And so in our first night, our first discussion, we basically brought up issues from the perspective of the non-temple or shrine brothers that I mentioned, and what they're saying about the others, about Jabari, about the Shrine of Ma'at, Shrine of Ptah, Temple of Anu, etc., or Kemetic practitioners. And so that was the angle of our conversation for the first night. And so tonight we want to do the same, but we want to flip it in reverse and discuss what are the Kemetic practitioners saying that the non-practitioners are accusing and doing, and so on and so forth. So that's what we kind of want to focus on from that particular angle. But so we want to bring out some of the things that's being said. So, that's part of the discussion. So I'm going to open the panel up like I've been doing in the other 2 parts, where, everyone is invited to come on the panel and chime in on the conversation. And the only thing that we ask is that we keep it respectful, as we've been doing. Keep it, it's been a very good conversation. No one talks over each other, and we're definitely not disrespecting one another or the people's names that we are bringing up. Okay, because they're not here, and so we don't want to turn it into a bashing or anything like that. We don't want to insult or any of that kind of stuff. And so far, so good. We've been careful not to do any of that. And we're only talking about the issues. And then also tonight, we're definitely going to focus on solution, and not solutions to really fix it overnight, because the issues that we're dealing with, that we're talking about, they didn't come up overnight. And so you're not going to get rid of them overnight, but we can talk about things that can prevent them in the future. And so I definitely want to get into that tonight before we end. And, so I'm going to be speaking my mind on that, all right, before we end. So with all that said, also, I know people were tuned in late, so welcome again. And we also had a super chat active, all right? So if y'all are used to supporting using super chat or anything like that, hey, I'm letting you all know that it is activated, it's available. We appreciate any support for what we do, our research as a group, as a team of researchers, and support the channel, support our research, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So with that, I'm going to pass the mic, and we're going to just open up the conversation, give people a chance to chime in, and then I'll post the link, and then we're just going to keep flowing with the conversation. So I'm going to open the mic up on the floor, and maybe one of you all can start us off with these issues for tonight. All right.
Okay, I can start. Okay, so we are looking in from the side of the people in the shrines.
Okay, one second. Let me also say this. What made the first night really good in terms of how we had the discussion is because when we raise certain issues, we have to be surgical. Okay, we don't want to do the blanket, the broad stroking or vague stuff. We don't want to say they or them and whatnot. So on the first night, we specifically brought up some claims or accusations, and then we try to specifically discuss it, in a very specific way. So I don't want that to change. I want that to be the same model that we use for this discussion now. So, because we have to, because a lot of, I'm going to repeat this as I said both nights, is that the majority of conflicts or arguments between people, human beings, is due to miscommunication. And if we learn how to communicate properly and convey our ideas and so on and so forth, it will cut down on a lot of conflict and arguments and things like that. But now, if a conflict should occur, what usually happens is that the conflict will have be a seed, something that has a core issue of conflict. Then noise is created around it that creates a buffer to where you can't pierce through that buffer to actually get back to the core to resolve the conflict. And that's what happens every time. And so to reduce the noise, you have to be very, very surgical to penetrate through that noise. You have to be very precise, very sharp, very surgical. And so that's how these discussions should continue. Be very specific. If somebody claims something and we need to pull up a video, somebody provide us timestamp or whatever the case is, that's what we'll do. And, I don't mind doing that. All right. So just want to make sure we stay on track.
Okay, so since you've talked about being specific, I think from the side of the members of the different shrines, I think one of the questions that they may have had or have is why don't these people be more specific and with the issues that they have with the different shrines. So have a particular issue that is like, I think on their part they will ask, some shrines might be like, we don't do this over here, while it might actually apply to a different shrine. So I think that's one of the questions they may have about why aren't they more specific? And then another question I think they may have will be, how do they know? How do these people know what we do over here? So like, are they former members, all this kind of stuff. So I think that's another question that, those, the people in the different shrines might have.
All right. So basically, from what you're saying, because I want to be specific. So the brother Jabari has said that the people who speak out against the shrines and temples don't come and participate and check them out. And so he mentioned that people don't come to the Shrine of Ma'at and sit and they don't have to become a member, as he said, but they don't come there to see exactly what they're doing. So then that question comes up, as you said, how do you even know what it is that we do or why we do what we do? All right, so that's one thing. So remember that one. Number two is that they are saying that specifically Baba Heru is being disrespected. Okay, so there's an issue of respect that's involved with what's going on, and more focused on Baba Heru. People are coming to Baba Heru's defense because they feel that he's being disrespected. All right, so that's another one. That's two. And then three, they're being accused of being religious. And that term religious is being used, I guess, in a pejorative way, almost synonymous with spooky. Or you know how in the so-called conscious community where people use the word religious to be a synonym for spooky, pseudo, and basically you're nuts type of thing. We all pretty much heard it in that context. So those are the three things, including what you said, which was number one. But I wanted to add the other two to it. Those are the three main things that are being repeated from the side of the Kemetic practitioners. All right. So we have an issue of not being involved to know what they do and why they do what they do. That's number one. Two, respect or disrespect. And then three, being accused of being what's pretty much equivalent to being nuts. Pseudo, religious, spooky, and so on and so forth. All right. So does anybody like to add to that? Those three.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if I've had this before, but it's about why don't they ask? Like they can why didn't the other people ask them about these certain things so that they can explain them?
Well, that kind of goes under number one. If they show up at the shrine or whatever, then they could ask.
Gotcha.
They could pretty much ask, or if you want to add that, then basically on the platforms, if people have issues, then why not ask for clarification? So we're gonna make that number 4.
Okay. Yes, and dua to Donisi, who is donated on a super chat for
definitely.
$20. Yeah, that's much appreciated. And the other thing I think I heard on one of the videos was there was a lady that was talking about people being grounded in ma'at and something of that nature. So I think on the part of the members of these different shrines, they might be asking about how well those people might be grounded in their different spiritual systems, or if they do have any spiritual system groundings. perhaps in a way that would better help them understand how to come at them correctly in a respectful manner. So that's another question. I don't know. How well are they grounded in their spiritual system to be able to tackle these issues, in a proper manner.
Well, that one's a little bit tricky because they may not have a spiritual system. The brother Unk is he identifies as a real black atheist. So that kind of kind of throws a monkey wrench in asking that kind of question. So I'm putting it down as number 5 though. So because I want to just frame up the conversation before we post the link. All right, so that's the conversation so far. And if you come on the panel and if you have something else to add to that list, then fine. We'll definitely talk about it. So let me say them again, and then I'll post the link. All right. So again, for those who are tuned in a little bit later than when we started, I'm just going to reiterate that this is the final conversation we're having on these issues. This is part 3. And we're going to style this like we did part 1, the first night, except we're going to flip it. On the first night, we raised points or issues from the perspective of the non-Kemetic practitioners on what they're saying about the Kemetic practitioners. So this time, we're going to go the other way. We're going to focus on what the Kemetic practitioners are saying about the non-Kemetic practitioners, at least what they're being accused of or what have you. All right. And so here's a 5 things so far. The Kemetic practitioners are saying that the non-Kemetic practitioners are not coming to the shrines and the temples to participate in anything, to even know exactly what they do and why they do what they do. So basically, that's a way of saying they're ignorant of what they do exactly and how they do or why they do what they do. So that's 1. 2, they're saying that they're being disrespected. Okay, more specifically, Baba Heru. 3, they're being accused of being spooky, religious, spooky, religious, pseudo. All right. 4, they're saying that the non-Kemetic practitioners are not asking for clarification in channels, in ways in which they should ask for clarification. If you have a problem with something, then ask clarification. That's what they're saying. And then 5, what Emiket just said is that they're asking the question of non-Kemetic practitioners. Well, what is your spiritual system? What do you stand on? What moral and ethics and things that you stand on, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So those are the 5 so far. All right. And so again, I'm going to post the link, and everyone is invited. Now, I just want to say this. Last night we had, I guess, some bot trolls in the chat, and we eliminated them. So if you all see any of that going on tonight, we'll be eliminating. But I want to apologize for that ahead of time if it happens, because we can't control it. But it's just interesting that on a channel like ours that would happen. I don't even see that happening on the drama channels, the channels where people are fussing and arguing back and forth. I don't even see that there. But yet it comes here. So that was crazy. That was interesting. All right. So does anybody on the panel have anything to say before I post the link? Anything to add to those 5?
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good too. Just want to say duao to Donisi again, Omar Reed and Mika for donating in the chat, in the super chat. That's great. Dua.
Yes, definitely appreciate it, because we appreciate the support for future research and just supporting what we're doing. We're about the business of raising an army of scribes. All right. As a matter of fact, let me read this. This is something that I quote all the time from Dr. Theophilo Benga, all right, on the importance of learning the Egyptian language. All right, now we're not going to have a language class tonight or anything like that, but I can't emphasize this enough. And it's relevant to the conflicts as well. Okay, and we'll talk about that before we close. But this is from Dr. Theophilo Benga in 2006. All right, he says the Egyptian language must be learned technically because this language is the key to understanding Kemet from an intrinsic paradigm. Positive discussion about Kemet is no longer sufficient if our aim is to advance the discipline with sound scholarship. In order for us to have a deep and exciting dialogue with Kemet, it is necessary for us to master the Egyptian language. This requirement is imperative, for without it, we have no beginning. All right? I echo those words all the time. Okay? So it's very important. And the reason why is because language is the DNA of culture. You are not going to understand a culture unless you understand its language. Period. There's no buts that come after that. If you don't take time to understand the language in which the culture permeates through, then you have to admit that you are handicapped in your understanding. Period. There's no buts after that. Okay? We got to understand that where we're weak and where we're strong. All right? So there's no excuses around that, and there's no trying to explain our ways out of it. If you want to know a culture, you better learn the language. If I want to know the Islamic culture in a more informative way, I better learn Arabic. If I want to learn the Judaic culture, I better learn Hebrew. Same with any culture. There's no way around it. So that is partly or is relevant to these conflicts, because a lot of people are arguing over Egypt and don't know the language. All right? And so it's a waste, but let's open it up. So I'm going to post the link up and we're going to get into it. So that's the framing of the question of the conversation. And like I said, we want to make sure that we talk about prevention, future prevention. So right now we're creating a vaccine. We're creating a vaccine for conflicts. All right. So I posted the link. Post it again a few times. Get everyone in here. And, when you come on the panel, please mute your mic. But when you speak, introduce yourself. Tell us where you're hailing from. Make sure you tell us where you're hailing from. And, you can go in. So far, we're going to, pass the mic around. So everyone heard me frame up the conversation. I listed 5 points that we want to discuss. And so the floor is open. So I know we have Brother Morpheus, Brother Aniwa Sarah came in, and
Hotep family, Hotep.
So what's your if you heard everything I said, what's your take on any of those 5 points? Well, we can do them one at a time, or let me know if you adding one. But let's take them one at a time. And it could be in any order. Doesn't matter.
All right. Let's start with I don't know what number you had it, but the shrine saying, you haven't been here, or you don't come here or involve yourself in us to know it is exactly what we do. They have a point.
Okay, good. So keep talking. That's the first one. I'm gonna type the points in the chat so people could at least see it and be informed. But yeah, go ahead. Keep on talking.
Yeah. So I mean, they do have a point as far as that's concerned, because if you don't know what I do in my house, you can't really comment positive or negative about what goes on in my house. If you're not, you don't you're not part of my house, or you don't even come in my house, so you can't really comment on what happens in my house. You can, give conjecture or what you think, but if you don't, if you're not in my house, there's no way you can really intelligently speak about what happens in my house. So they have a point there. I mean, picture me coming to your house and say, "What happens in Wujahu house?" and I never been inside your house. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Mm.
So that's my take as far as that is concerned. I'm like, okay, yeah. I mean, that's true.
So you're saying that they have a point.
Yeah, they do have a point.
Yeah. All right. So anybody else want to speak on that?
I think a lot of times what they I'm sorry, this is Rob from Birmingham, Alabama. Um, as I said before, I did spend some time at Shrine of Ptah. Um, although I kind of traveled around to different places when I was there. But anyway, um, I think the problem is that when you get in there, you if you're on the streets and you see something, then you assume that everything that you see right there, you take a snapshot of that. That's what I think. That's really where a lot of this stuff is coming from. They'll see people either on the street or they'll see them on a video, and then they'll take that snapshot, and then that becomes the whole thing. And then if you're not really going to a person and talking to them, then that's gonna you know that could cause problems. Sometimes your first snapshot on it, sometimes you get a blink, and that blink is correct. You got exactly what you see correctly. But even in that case, people need to call people and ask them. This is what I thought I saw. Is that what I thought I saw? So I
Okay.
think
So
that's yeah.
so what it sounds like is really number 1 and 5 can be kind of combined. But I listed them in the chat. So indicate if you can um put those together so that everybody can keep following along as time goes on. But yeah, so what it sounds like is that there needs to be, and I said this before, but I'll repeat it. There seems to be a need for a PR department, public relations department for these groups. So for example, if the Shrine of Ma'at had a PR point of contact, a person that everyone, and this is the norm, becomes the norm, then when something comes up in terms of a discrepancy or what people need clarification on or don't like or whatever, then they have at least they have a point of contact to a channel that's open for that conversation to happen, and then it could educate the public if they had the conversation in the public. But I think that one thing that would be a big help is if these organizations or groups had a point of contact as a PR, or if they're big enough, have a PR department, and I know large organizations do that. I mean,
But you
period.
know what? Also, that begs the question. You said something that was interesting. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day, a day before, or the first show. It's like the Masonic Lodge, right? From if we look out from the outside of the Masonic Lodge, people draw all kind of conclusions. They're the Illuminati. They're a secret society that chops up babies and so forth, right? But you would have to be in the lodge to know what happens in the lodge. So here's my question. So with these shrines, I think some of their practices are actually reserved for members that is private, that public people don't see, right? So if that's so, and they have like the inner teachings, or so it's like so, if you're not part of the shrine, right, or do you have to be part of the shrine? Yeah, let me ask it that way. Do you have to be part of the shrine to know you know what's really going on inside that that system? Do you have to be part of that?
Well, we can speak Well, that's a good question because that speaks to kind of what I was saying about the PR. So you brought up Freemasonry. I always use Freemasonry as an example, and Freemasons as an example, um, because me, I'm not an active Freemason, but I've definitely been a long time traveling man, and that's a whole nother topic. But so I understand
Yeah,
from the inside how that happens. But there's PR people or departments for that. And so what it is that every initiatory body, they have their privacy, okay? Things that are members only type of stuff. These things
right,
that the public would like to say secret, okay? These are sacred things that are kept private, and some people would like to say secret, but it's not secret in the sense that all you have to do is become a member, and you'll have access to it. So
right,
there is a level of privacy, but what these organizations do, um, if they're smart, they have a body of information that will like be a conduit for the public, so that the public won't misconstrue anything. And so people will say, like you said, they'll say Freemasons, they worship Baphomet, they
hmm,
worship the devil, they worship the demons, they have a six-pointed star, and the order of the Eastern Star, a satanic symbol and stuff like that. Just turn it upside down,
yeah, yeah,
all these kinds of things. So what these organizations do, they create literature that will address all those things. It's things that are public relations. It's how they relate to the public and things like that. So that ties into what I'm saying. That obviously these shrines or and temples and things need to do the same thing as these larger organizations. That's what they do. And I
hmm,
know that for a fact. And even then, you can't control what everybody thinks, because even if you produce that literature, somebody's still going to say, you're all the devil worshippers and this and that.
of course, of
But
course.
at least you put the effort in, and then you'll feel good about what you've done, and you can't help that. So, but now to answer your question though, that also applies to every initiatory system. So all in the United States, all African Americans who may have dropped an Abrahamic tradition, and I'm hearing an echo. I think you have to mute while at least while I'm talking. Um, African Americans in America, who obviously African Americans, African Americans who drop an Abrahamic system and then they go and seek a quote unquote African spiritual tradition or African spiritual religion or whatever, um, they get initiated into these different things, and pretty much the most popular that I've seen is the Ifa or Isheshe system out of Nigeria. And even within that, the same accusations that are being levied against the shrines and the temples of Kemetic practitioners can be the same exact thing said for the African spiritual systems, such as Ifa, such as voodoo, and so on and so forth. Same exact thing. And so there's a commonality there. It's coming from ignorance, because most people that say that, they're not in it. They've never been in it to actually know and see what is done. And like you said, the same thing is done with Freemasonry, which a lot of people are more familiar with, but the same things are said. And if you become a member, you get access to the information. You know that certain things, people say, oh, you know, like I said, you worship the devil and whatnot and all this other kind of stuff. But when you get in there, you're like, oh, I had it all wrong. Goodness gracious. And you feel like a fool, you know. But that's what's going on. So yeah, so that's important. So I think a solution for the future is for all these types of groups, organizations, shrines, temples, etc., to create a point of contact for the public. Because obviously, especially if you're membership based and you're initiatory type based system, you have to set up a public relations point of contact or produce some literature. You're going to have to do it, period. If you don't, then you can be misconstrued. You can be, viewed totally different than what the perception could be totally off. All right. So you're going to have to do that. Yeah.
Hey, this is Neusara. I hail from DC. I just wanted to touch on the point. I'm not sure exactly who made it, but in terms of never coming into one of their shrines, if that's what they call it, and not knowing, sort of guessing. I think that when you're a part of anything, you always are like reflecting it once you step out. So the moment you make a video, you can gauge sort of like what goes on in the house. A lot of people might say like, how the inside of someone's houses look based off how they come outside looking, or based off of their children. They're a product of them. So you know exactly how or you might know how to have a good gauge on how that person is based off how they raise their children. So those two things kind of came to mind, like when you made the statement, because they're making videos, they're acting a certain type of way. And then back to the paradigm that we keep using in Freemasonry, you always have to be, even with Boy Scouts, right? Not even to get that serious, but you always have to reflect or sort of be a mirror or emulate the teachings that are going on. So a lot of times people, they say like, I read this and I read that and I read this. You wouldn't even have to tell me you read all of that, because all I have to do is listen to how you speak, right? And the things that you put together, and I'll have a good gauge on your character, what you've read, who you are. And sometimes you can just tell with people who they are and what they've read. So sometimes I don't have to come inside of your house to know that, that it's dirty, because I can just look at you or smell you, right? So sometimes, I'm not saying that these people are dirty or anything like that. I'm just using it as an example, but they're making videos and they're saying things. So I don't necessarily have to go inside, to see exactly, to know, have a good gauge that, I don't think I want to do it, So that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, that's a good point. But that's definitely relative to the issue, though. That's on a case by case, because it depends on what the issues are. Because basically, people are what they say. What people should be, what they say they are. So instead of you telling me you are X, Y, and Z, I should see that in your behavior. But some of these issues that come up with these type of things go beyond that. They're like, more specific on why you do something, and that's number 3. We're gonna get to that, them being accused of being religious or spooky and things like that. So that's where you go beyond what somebody does, because you can watch what somebody does and misunderstand it. You can misunderstand that. So
yep.
I've definitely seen some documentaries of cultures that I was totally unfamiliar with, and I'm looking at what they do and I'm like, wow. And you gotta empty your cup when you look at these cultures that you yourself are not part of and you never grew up in. And you gotta do your best to be empathetic, put yourself in their shoes and just allow and appreciate it for what it is, and go from there. So, and that's another thing, we can't project and force our ideals on other things all the time. So but yeah, anything else is on the non-participant. So listen, I'm putting the link in the chat every now and then. So again, everyone is invited in the chat. And if you have a question and you can't make it on the panel, if you have a question or whatnot, I guess you could highlight my name so I can see it, because sometimes the chat scrolls and I may miss it. The @ symbol with my name, Wujao at it. All right. So yeah, anybody else? We still on the first point. we're still on the first point. Nothing. All right, so that was that was quick and easy.
Yeah, that covers the participating part.
Yeah, that's pretty easy. So all right. So before we move on, so again, what I see as a solution to that in the future is that all these organizations, even if you're small, you have to have some point of contact or some. You have to be accessible where you can address these kind of things before it blows up. And it would be ideal to have literature already out there and stuff like that, or at least a point of contact, a PR literature, PR person, PR department. Okay. And that's just that. So I think that would help out tremendously because I've seen it firsthand. As a Freemason, I know what people say and how it's handled.
Yeah, I remember all that from like them Sufi orders and all that stuff, bro. Same stuff, man. We looking at the same thing.
Exactly. So, so I think that will help out. So
Yeah.
we could move on to another point. Here is the next point. So the next point is disrespect. Okay, so here's the thing about that.
That's a big one.
Yeah, the Kemetic practitioners are saying that they're being disrespected, and more specifically, Baba Heru. And there's an echo, Morpheus. When you don't mute. So so they're saying that they're being disrespected in general, but more specifically, focus has been put on Baba Heru in terms of disrespecting Baba Heru. So let's discuss that. So disrespect. Well, let me answer Omar Reed's question real quick. He asks me, have I tried to sit down with the elders personally? No. See, I'm not in this. Let me put it this way. I'm not a participant in the back and forths, but I definitely would not mind sitting down with anyone, any of them. Okay, but have I? No, I haven't. So I'm definitely open for it. I'll try to be a voice of reason on all sides, yeah. So, but anyway, so we're talking about disrespect.
Okay. So Baba Haru says that or felt that he's disrespected, right?
Oh, you sound low now. I don't know what happened.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So Baba Haru says or felt that he's being disrespected. Is that it?
Yeah. Yep. I think, like I said, in general, the shrines, period. Excuse me. Based on even with what Sanjeti said last, Sanjeti called into Saneta's live with the brother Reggie on the line, I believe, and Sanjeti expressed a few things, and the disrespect was one of them. So it's disrespect in general, but specifically Baba Heru.
So what? So we got to identify what are they saying is disrespect because they're being questioned. If you question their practices or teachings, is that what they're calling disrespect because you're questioning them? So can we identify what are they, talking about as far as what's disrespectful? Because what's disrespectful for one person may not be disrespectful for the other. So exactly, what are we saying? What is okay? What is the disrespect?
Okay, and that's you hit it on the head. Bingo, bingo, bingo. That is a very important distinction to make because now I'm gonna say this. In the so-called conscious community, some people will holler disrespect when it's not really disrespect.
Right.
They'll holler disrespect just because you correct them or you question how they came to a certain conclusion, and they'll be defensive and they'll be on edge and they will cry disrespect. I've seen it done. I've even been involved with it, and there are people who view that certain of our elder scholars are beyond reproach or correction. And if you mention their name and you correct some information, people will identify that as disrespect. And so let me give y'all an actual situation. Myself, the brother Asar Imhotep, and Sanjeti, we have been discussing the meaning of the place name Kemet. And so in that discussion, I mean, we've been talking about that for a long time. I mean, very long time, but and it kind of comes and goes in terms of in the forefront of conversations. And so we, in our research and our sharing of information, we identified where Sheikh Anta Diop was wrong. And when we shared that, there was absolutely no disrespect whatsoever. No disrespect could be identified, but yet we were called disrespectful to the elder. Specifically, the heat fell on Asar Imhotep. And so Asar Imhotep was even accused of figuratively digging Diop's body up, disrespecting him to gain a name for himself and everything. And we have all this stuff on tape. I mean, on video, recorded. And so what we did, when all that went down, we invited those elders that said all that stuff. Matter of fact, I'm going to name names. It was Mfundishi. It was the elder Mzee, Mkuu. It was the Ka Kilimanjaro of Kemet University Press. It was, and then a young brother Kufu. And they're part of the, and another elder, man, I forgot his name. Anybody on the panel remember? The other elder?
No, but in a minute I might find it.
Okay, so it was another elder, and forgive me, I forget that elder's name, but they went live, and they had a whole conversation about that issue, disrespect and stuff like that, and they were targeting Asar Imhotep, and a little bit was definitely targeted towards the brother Unk. Okay, and so when we saw it and heard it and everything like that, we didn't do a reply video and create a bunch of fuss and noise. We contacted those elders and we invited them to do a live show together and address it like men in front of the public, because they did their video in front of the public. And we wanted an apology because, after we sorted out, we wanted a public apology. And so we scheduled the live show, and all of the elders didn't show up. Mfundishi refused to show up and refused to apologize. The Ka Kilimanjaro refused to show up, but he did apologize. Okay. And then the other elders I mentioned, they were on the show and we had a good time. Everything was green light. Everything was good. They apologized and they understood what we were saying and how there wasn't disrespect. And that's how you do it. So I'm saying I was involved with an incident where disrespect can be said. People could be accused of, Olatunji, Jalanda, Baba Olatunji. That's the other elder. So, and we had a good time talking to them. Baba Olatunji was there, good time. Like I said, we had a good time talking to them, and everything worked out. Everything worked out, and it was publicly done. Okay, and so hopefully that would be an example of how to handle that. So that's a good question. So Morpheus, we definitely have to separate real disrespect from the fake disrespect that people want to cry for, and stuff like that. So that's very, very important. So in this situation, the same thing has to happen. What is the real disrespect? Is it because, like, for example, if Baba Heru makes a claim and he has videos where he's making a claim about something and he's wrong, is it disrespectful to correct him? And some people may feel a way about that. but that's not disrespect. It's you can correct somebody, but you can do it disrespectfully. And so that's what has to be identified. How are they being disrespected? So does anybody know on the panel or in the chat, or you want to jump on the panel? Let's get specific. What exactly is the disrespect? Can anybody give examples of the disrespect?
I can.
Okay, there you go. Go ahead. All right. So let's go. Let's go. But hold up. Does everybody understand the separation though? We don't want to. We're talking real disrespect, not the fluff and people crying that, oh, I'm disrespecting. People playing victim. Oh, you're disrespecting me just because being corrected. So yeah.
Cat family, you go first. Okay, bro.
How's it going, brother? Thank you. Hey fam, how y'all doing? This is Ron. I'm from the South. I was raised in New York most of my life, my first part of my life, but down here, there's certain things that's just going to be seen as disrespect. Bottom line is that if you don't pull somebody to the side and you got an issue with them, it's one thing is if you go ahead and you take it out in the street, after you try to talk to them in the house. And then they want to go outside, but somebody, you can't really have a conversation if y'all out in the streets. It's like, this is kind of ghetto is what we call it down here. Why are you out in the street yelling and making a show for everybody else? Trying to saying that you want to resolve it. The fact is that the very point that you took it outside in the streets, before tried to talk to them. I'm not saying that that's necessarily the case, but if that is the case, then that's already a point off of you. Men and women should be adults and behave like adults, and first try to deal with each other one-on-one before they be like, we out here. You shouldn't do that. So that's my first glance at that. That's going to cause problems. That's why I said that the other, last night. Why? What did you call him? Did you call Baba Heru? Because I just happen to know that a few of these brothers, I know it's been years that I've been around since I've been around them, but I was around them back in the day, and at no time did I get any inkling that they had the incapacity, to self-correct. At the same time, if they've done things, and I can't say that I agree with a lot of stuff that some of the elders do, but at the same time, the way I look at it is, and I really think you all should consider this, that's they're pioneers. We're another level of pioneers. We're the next generation, and we should expect that the next generation is going to do that. And the question is, how do we keep from spitting on the last generation and yet continuing to move forward? So this particular point right here, I would say you got to be careful about. And this is one of the things I really dislike about the whole WWF wrestling type, debate thing on TV, on Sonetta TV, and then the character, these people, when you in that kind of environment, you're juicing yourself up and stuff like that, and people are juicing you up, after a while that stuff starts taking on a life of its own, and you get away from what's important. Now, a few of the brothers, I won't name names right now, but I saw, like I said, this brother that's gonna go crazy. Watch. That right there, that brother, yeah, that's gonna go crazy. It's gonna be some crazy stuff. So that's the thing about it. The bottom line is that all this on camera stuff that we do, I'm not saying that we should do some things on camera, but I do think when we have conflicts, the first step should be to write out your questions clearly, write out your issues clearly, or even make suggestions, because the bottom line is, if we're going to be like the next generation, I just don't feel like, I never got from those brothers that if I come to them and suggest these things and say, I'm the next generation or whatever, we trying to refine what we're doing. Here's what I brought to you, elder.
Right.
I would like to try to get it. That's my thing. I just don't. I believe that if you go to some of these brothers, I might be wrong. Maybe they've changed, but I think if you go to them you'll find that most of this stuff will be squashed. So I'll shut
All
up
right.
now.
Well, let me
So,
be more specific. Let me be more specific, right? Watch this. I think what they're referring to as disrespect is the little remix videos, you know what I mean, or making fun of them on videos that some people have done mixed, they've made took, certain things that they've done or said, or such as let's say a Baba Haru when he's singing and playing the guitar. I've seen some remixes people have done with videos by making fun of them, in jest, and those are things that are talking about what they may be referring to as disrespect. I really don't think it's the questioning their teaching or their practices. I don't think it's that part. I think the part that they're referring to as disrespect is the making fun, you know what I mean?
mm,
Fun of them and joking about maybe a ritual or something that they've done or whatever. So I think that's what they're referring to as the disrespect part.
okay, so I,
Um,
so let's make sure that we I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So with this whole disrespect issue, what we will not do is do the fake disrespect, because some people's interpretation of disrespect is not really disrespect. They just cry victim because they're being corrected, or they want to save face for something that they double down on in public, and they don't want to look a certain way. So the disrespect that we're talking about is real disrespect. And when it comes to joking and mocking, and gist, when people do things in gist, that is very sensitive because it's based on context. Because you can make fun of somebody in the right context and they don't feel insulted. But if you make fun of somebody in the wrong context, then it switches over to being an insult. So we all of us are familiar with comedians and how comedians do it all day, every day. So that's an issue. That's a very sensitive thing to deal with. So I've seen people in the chat say that name calling, people being called out of their name. What else? I'm seeing people being called out of their name
Definitely
uh
the mocking. Definitely the mocking.
and throwing insults and slandering of one's name outside of the refuted claim. Yeah. So now that has been going on. I've seen that. I've seen that done, and that's immature. That's immaturity there. Like a real scholar, and this is something that we say all the time. I know Saramotep says this all the time, and I say it. I agree with him. A real scholar has good character. In order to be a scholar, you have to have good character. If you don't have good character, you're not a scholar. I don't care how much you know. Okay, that's a different label. A true scholar is one that has good character. Why? Because a true scholar has to be honest with themselves. They have to be able to be corrected when they're wrong, and they have to be able to see their own vulnerabilities, strengths, and weaknesses. And a lot of times, people in this so-called conscious community, they refuse to be vulnerable in public, and therefore they gotta put this brick wall up, and have this tough mind attitude where they can't be corrected. They end up being incorrigible, where you just can't correct them at all, and they just want to argue, and you try to correct them, and they'll look for something to disagree with you. Period. And that leads into people being called out their names and so on and so forth. But I have seen that happen. I have seen that happen, and when I see it happen, I always speak against it. Me personally, I don't call people out their name, even if I don't think that a name or title is fitting. I'll still call them that because that's what they like to be called, and that's just what we supposed to do. That's just how people should have been raised, at least as far as where I come from.
Yeah, because you know what, Woo? Because they feel a lot of times that they've been doing something for so long. Say, for instance, they say, well, I've been doing this for 30 years or 40 years and 50 years, and here you come. So they feel like they earned, a certain, like you said, position, and for you to question or bring new information because this what I noticed. a lot of these elders are just like your grandmother, who's a Christian, right? And she's 80 years old, 70, 80 years old. She's been Christian 70, 80 years old. And no matter what archaeology, history, evidence, proof that you bring to her, right, and literally show her, she's still going to say, "Listen, I don't care. Jesus Christ is still my Savior." So no matter what, right? Because they're set in their ways. So a lot of the elders are still moving off of old information. Let's call it what it is. A lot of, even the books that they're reading are, written in the 1960s, 70s, and so forth. And there's a whole lot of new information that have been updated, right? That they may not be privy to. Maybe they don't read anymore. They stop studying. So here you come, right, with the new information, right, updated information, and then now you challenge what they've been shaped and molded into. They take that as disrespect.
Well, that's the one
That's
that
So
all.
now the
that's the
question comes in that should the elders position themselves as scholars then? Because regardless of how old you are, we could go back to scholars 100 years from in the past. Those scholars would not frame their thought in that sense, as in where they will not be corrected, because as a scholar in the past or the present and also in the future, the one of the things that you're aware of is that there will always be new information and there will always be correction. So now, are these elders, should they actually position themselves as scholars then, if that's how they're going to take it?
and that's a key thing. So before we pass the mic, we definitely make sure that we're separating the two types of disrespect: the fake and then actual disrespect. So any person, I don't care how old they are, if they view somebody's correction of something that they have claimed or stood on as disrespect, then they're delusional, because that's not disrespect. Correcting someone is not disrespectful. It's how you do it can be disrespectful. Like you can correct somebody disrespectfully, but the fact of correcting somebody is in and of itself is not a sign of disrespect at all. I don't care how old you are. And that's another thing in this conscious community. Maybe that's for another topic, but we got to understand, eldership is a two-way street. It's not a one-way street. To be an elder and to be a non-elder, it's a two-way street. It's not a one-way highway. It's two lanes in that highway. The youth got to respect the elders, and the elders got to respect the youth. And that's why we have a custom. A lot of us have a custom of asking elders for permission to speak. And in that request to ask to speak, if you're in a room and you're about to speak to a large audience, you always ask the elder in the room or elders in the room for permission to speak. What that does is you are alerting the older seniors, people who are senior to you, your elders. You are asking them for permission to speak, but you're also asking them to pay attention that you got something to say to them. So it's a two-way street. And when they say, yes, you may, they're acknowledging that I gave you permission, but also they're acknowledging that, hey, I'm going to respect what you say and I'm going to listen to you, young brother. So it's always a two-way street. And that's what some people forget. So the elders themselves got to remember that. And so respect goes both ways. And you really shouldn't even base respect on age. Just the fact that another human being, male or female, deserve respect. People should deserve losing your respect. The default setting should be respect, not the other way around. And that's it. I mean, I have children, and I respect my children. They're my children. So it's two ways. I mean, two-way street. But I know we got some other people that jumped on the line, so I'll make sure we get everybody a chance to chime in.
I just wanted to say another level of disrespect, and I'm not sure because it seems like we're trying to figure out where it's coming from. We haven't like pinpointed it exactly. I know that a lot of the elders, they come from New York, and me being a native or like being born in California and being raised there so long, then moving to St. Louis, and now on the East Coast, I see that there's different states, and they have different states of mind and different ways about going about, carrying themselves. So people think they see disrespect in a different way. And I know New York is kind of like in your face, opposed to St. Louis and opposed to like other places where I'm at, where I am right now. I know that there's different levels of disrespect. So there's just small variations. So it's always like the same in nature, but different in degree. So it's like there is disrespect, but people kind of take it differently in the South, and people take it differently in New York. And just saying like a lot of them are from New York, that might have a small part to do with how they view disrespect or being disrespected, and also like since it doesn't really have that much structure in terms of like how the communication with the people who study Kemet, that it's always been sort of chaotic. So it's always seemed really chaotic. So hopefully out of this comes some degree of order, you know what I mean, some degree of how we all should communicate amongst one another when we do disagree. And I'll just pass the mic.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's definitely a good point. We forget about that. The internet has actually brought a distinct communities together, and we think that each community is alike. Like how people operate in New York is different than how a person operates in DC, different from person from Florida and everything. And that's from your upbringing, and that's something we definitely have to bear in mind. So that's a good point.
Okay, Will, can I address something?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, let's be specific. All right, let's deal with because when we talk about disrespect, we're generalizing. So in this situation, let's talk about exact, meaning okay, who's doing the disrespect? Who's accused? Let's put Reggie on the plate, brother Reggie. Right, let's put him on the plate because he's a brother who they're saying or who they're accused of being disrespectful. So let's be exact with the who's that we're talking about. Can we do that?
Yeah, I mean that's
Absolutely.
that's that's what I like to do. I mean, name names. I'm naming names, and
Yeah, yeah,
examples. So yeah, so give us an example.
yeah. So they're saying like we mentioned Baba Haru, so we have an exact person. Okay, so let's say who they're talking about. Are they talking about Brother Reggie? So let's look at what Brother Reggie has said or done, and let's see if we think that that's what he's done is disrespectful, because it's weird. It's just weird to me that nobody sees what they're doing to Brother Reggie as being disrespectful. It's like I don't get this. That's the part that I don't get. I don't understand. I see like they try to bully him. I never seen him say anything disrespectful to anybody other than questioning the teachings. So let's one by one put them on the plate. Let's deal with Brother Reggie. Go.
Okay, so I'm not sure if people are familiar with the video. Now Reggie was on the first part of our conversation, and he came on last night for the second part. And so when he was here, he kind of gave a summary of his involvement, what led up to all this stuff. And he did a good job summarizing everything. And so if you all can recall, the brother Reggie, I believe he went on a platform, Baba TV, or Anytime Fire Baba TV, a platform. And also I think he was on the sidewalk with Sonetta as well. But there's a couple of videos from back then where Reggie is addressing different things that are pointed and directed to shrines and what have you. So I don't know if he mentioned by name Baba Heru or the brother Jabari by name, but in the video, if you watch it, because we can't pretend that some people when they talk, they have this nature of innuendos and implying without mentioning names. And I always think that that's a safety net to be able to back out if you get called out on it. But anyway, Reggie said a couple of things on two videos that I'm aware of. And then what happened after that, the brother Jabari responded. And so that was 2 years ago. In 2018, Jabari responded, and it's on Sonetta's channel. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna give you the title of the video of what I'm talking about because Jabari responded, and in the manner in which he responded, let's see if I can pull it up. Oh, y'all give me a second. I'll give you the name. Okay, the name of the video is called Brother Jabari Responding to Dr. Reggie and the Gloves Are Off. It's on Black News 102 channel. And so in that video, Jabari lays it all out. You know, he addresses what Reggie was saying, and then his idea of disrespect, Jabari explains it in that video. So if somebody's familiar with that video and want to give us some timestamps, then by all means do so. But I'm not gonna, of course, fish and play the whole video for us unless somebody can give me some timestamps. But
Can you paraphrase a little bit about what Jabari said that was
okay.
disrespectful?
So here's one of the things that Jabari felt was disrespectful. All right, hold up. I see somebody sharing their screen. Give me a second. When you're sharing your screen, give me a heads up so I could change for the audience to see your screen. Okay. So paraphrasing, of course, like I said, let me lay out this disclaimer. I do not speak for any of these people that I mentioned. Some of them I've never even met. Okay, so I just want to make sure everybody has that understanding. But the brother Jabari was saying in the video that he felt Reggie was disrespectful because Reggie went on a platform and innuendoed his way to talk about him and his shrine and possibly Baba Heru or the shrine of Ptah, et cetera, et cetera. And when he knows Jabari and they've been, talking to each other for over 20 years and stuff, and he could have come to him directly, but he chose a public platform to speak about them in a innuendo type of way. And so Jabari took that as being disrespectful. So that's one of your examples for you right there.
Okay, but what did he say that was taken as disrespectful? That's
No.
what I'm trying to get.
No. It
identify.
wasn't. It wasn't something specifically said. It was the fact that he did that. That was just a disrespectful way of doing it. Like if you watch it, and it's on the screen right now.
Okay.
Jabari says, why you responding? Aren't Brother Reggie and Jabari friends? And then I guess this is Jabari's slide. He says, does Reggie understand that he is being disrespectful? And then he explains it in the video. And it's not something that he specifically said and stuff. It's the whole manner in which Reggie did what he did is what Jabari said was disrespectful.
I'd have to go look at the video because I can't. But okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
So I can't paraphrase better than that because I didn't memorize everything that was said and
Hey, well,
whatnot.
you know what what it looks like? It looks like this whole uh disrespect thing is. Let me tell you something. The camera is a very very dangerous tool because most people, if you was to address them privately, right, right, it's like people online, they say stuff, they barking. 9 times out of 10, if you was to run up on that person, right, just you and him, right, you don't get that same energy. You will not get that same energy.
Oh,
Right, I see it all the time.
listen. I
Eh,
know this. I know this
That,
firsthand.
that's what I was saying earlier. It's like if you're gonna
that
if you
camera.
gotta the camera is intoxicating, and these brothers don't they don't have anybody on the side of them saying, your brother, you know chill. You ain't got to handle it that way. you know it could be handled a little bit differently. And also, I do think that that even when you're telling someone the truth, there's a wrong way to tell the truth, and then there's also, you can tell the truth in a way that is intentionally made into a dagger. You're trying to do damage. Uh, and then at the same time, sometimes we get arrogant, or we just assume that we know all there is to know, you know, and we don't. For instance, last night I heard comments about focus on funerary traditions, as opposed to other ways to come at it, and I can understand what he's saying, and that's a valid point. But the way that he said it gave the impression that funerary traditions were not a central part of the tradition, you know, uh, you know, uh, and that one could not make the argument that without it you cannot truly understand the traditions at all. You can't really understand, what you know what's going, why they did this, why they did that. You know, I would actually make the argument that without those things, without the funerary traditions, you can't really understand that. Now, when I say that, I'm not saying it, just to slap at them. I'm just saying that's I know that I can make the argument. When he was saying it, I could have said a number of things. I could have done a whole thing last night to show, that philosophically you can't discount, the importance of this. So just because he knows a lot of stuff, and you got scholars, and I understand you scholars, but we got to realize that there are scholars in different fields. You have different specialties, and you can't think that just because your specialty, you're on your thing with your specialty, that somehow or another, that you're not jumping in the lane that you don't necessarily know everything about when you start talking about this other thing.
Yeah.
This not, so I think we all have to be careful about that.
Yeah. I think just real quick, I think the chosen few in the chat raised a good point that I want to address. And he says, I understand the confusion, but individuals have the right to label disrespect as they personally see it. It's difficult to tell someone they weren't disrespected. The individual determines that. So I want to address that because that's a good thing to bring up, and I'm glad he brought it up. So there are different levels of disrespect, but I'm gonna give a scenario. You have a lady standing at the counter minding her business, and then a brother sitting down minding his business. The brother simply looks up at the lady and looks back down at his newspaper. The lady sees the brother just look up at her, and she cries harassment. So using that logic that Chosen Few has said, then the person crying harassment has every right to label it as harassment because as they personally see it. But still, is it actually harassment? And so we can't split hairs in that sense. So we have to understand what we're talking about, and that's why we define what disrespect was earlier. So everybody has the right to call anything what they want to call it and everything. If they feel disrespected or if they feel like they were harassed just by a look and whatnot. But that's not how things work. All right. So I just want to make sure people understand that. So yes, people have a right to identify things as they see fit, but that does not translate into it having weight. There's a certain weight to different things. And so people can say anything.
Down to the value. What does give it weight? And it seems to me that you're suggesting that the only thing that gives something weight is its academic value. And I caution against that because when you become, we're not Vulcans here. We're not, and we're talking about pro-social behavior here. We're talking about what is it, that where's that sweet spot that we can find where we can have these conversations, and people not feel this way. And somebody calling, so I'll hang up and listen.
Okay, all right. So what? But I want to be clear. What I'm saying is that again, yes, everybody has a right to label things what they want, but we have to be realistic that just because somebody labels something, it doesn't mean that something is that something. Okay, and I just gave a scenario that if a woman standing somewhere and brothers look at her and look back down and she sees all of that as harassment and she say, yo, those eight gentlemen over there, they harassing me. Is it really harassment? I'm just saying we can't get silly with it. So I don't want people to think it's all, open ended like that. It's not a blanket thing that, okay, everybody can describe something as they see fit, as if that's going to really have weight all the time. But yes, people can describe things as they want, and it has nothing to do with academic. It's just what it is. So
I don't want to.
yeah, so like, for example, the way I'm talking to everyone right now, everybody on this panel can claim that I'm disrespecting them. So is that right? Is that true? Just because they may see what I'm saying and how I'm saying it, and the tone or the volume of my voice as being disrespectful, does that actually make it disrespectful? Although they have a right to see it as being disrespectful. I'm just saying we can't be silly with it. So I want people to understand that we can't be open with that like that. So we're being specific here that we're identifying examples of what's being called disrespect, and then we're saying, okay, where does that fall on the spectrum of disrespect? Is that disrespect as in name calling, insulting and stuff like that, or are people saying they're disrespected because they're being corrected? Because according to that logic, then everybody who is corrected, who say they're being disrespected because of being corrected, then they must be right. Then that means correcting people is disrespectful, and that's not true. Period.
Not to speak for Reggie, but I did used to watch the Sonetta channel 2013, 14, and possibly even 15, and I remember him being disrespected a whole lot. And I'm not trying to speak for him, but I remember people literally disrespecting him because he doesn't necessarily have like that, that quote unquote New York attitude. Like, I'm not even sure if he's from there, but he doesn't really come off like that, like, yo, son, he don't really come off like that. He's kind of more like humble, sort of laid back, and people kind of take that and as a weakness in some places, and they might just come at him crazy and talk to him crazy. I've seen him on camera get into it with a few people some years back, and then I noticed a change in Brother Reggie, where he's like, okay, I need to assert myself more. But I don't think that was really true. I don't think that's true to his character, because I've even been like that, and that's not really true to my character. Just growing up, I'm like, okay, but you notice that when you're actually getting out of character, so it doesn't really fit you well. So, and you can kind of tell that you seem a little, it's just not you. Sometimes it's not true to who you really are. But I can understand why he got like that, because I saw it on a few occasions where people just talk to you just extremely, just talk at you more so extremely sideways, and you like, well, okay, and you can't on the streets, literally the streets of Harlem, where they at most of the time. It seemed like that wasn't really working. The way they're communicating with certain Hebrew Israelites and polite back in those days, people just talking at you like, get away. He's like, wait a minute. He had to start telling his credentials, like, yo, this is me when I was in, Kemetic with Dr. Ben. This is me, trying to let people know, but people won't even respect that sometimes. They only respecting like how you're coming most of the time. So I think that that's when people started to perceive how he was as disrespectful. But I think the best way to straighten somebody out, and then I'll pass the mic, is more so with the evidence, with what and then just telling them, and then just sort of being quiet. And really, if you look at a lot of the literature, when we get to how to straighten this out, you'll see that that's exactly what's laid forth in Kemet, since people stand by Kemet so strong. I mean, in the Maxims of Ptah-hotep, and in every single, so-called wisdom text, it tells you how to handle a despotant or somebody that's transgressing you, in different ages, different dynasties, different viziers, or like kings. I forgot what you call it, but how they would write, and in the literature, like, this is how you handle a situation like this, don't have your arms folded, and so on and so forth. But I think that maybe when it comes from, again, I don't want to speak for Brother Reggie. Hopefully he's listening, but I saw that for sure.
Well, let me just sum that up. Disrespect is a very subjective thing. And so what I don't want to do is get caught up in the in that subjectivity of it. But at some point, we definitely have lines. And so when we first brought this up, which is point number 2, we separated 2 major lines of disrespect. The fake disrespect, where somebody's being corrected and they're crying and hollering disrespect because they are simply being corrected. Granted that you can correct somebody in a disrespectful way, but the act of correction is not in and of itself a disrespectful act. Okay. And then we have disrespect on the other end, the extreme, where you're just calling people out their name, you making fun of them and all this other kind of stuff. So these are 2 obvious different lanes. Now, if we want to define some other lanes, I don't want to take time to do all of that. That's why we're bringing up specific examples. So Morpheus asked for an example. I brought up the video where Jabari is actually accusing Reggie of being disrespectful. And paraphrasing what Jabari is saying in there is that Reggie didn't say something specifically disrespectful, like an insult, but the way Reggie addressed the shrines and things in another public platform by way of innuendos and all other kind of stuff, when he could have contacted him and so on and so forth, he felt that was disrespectful. So I just gave an example. So, you all can lay it down on which side of that disrespect line.
Again, I just don't understand, why, people. But first of all, let me say this: I don't. I want to be clear. I have respect for Reggie. I've been watching him for a while, and I think that he's one of the more level-headed brothers that I've seen on Sarnetta. So I don't want to give the wrong impression. In fact, I had asked him a couple of nights ago if he would send me some information, and I intend on joining ASCAC, and but to get what I was going to say, I think when it comes down to it, there is a line, that we, there's like an average line that is just, that's social, pro-social behavior, and then you have anti-social behavior, and those lines are not as subjective as one might think. It's like there are certain things that I don't care where you go, if you do it, it's just disrespect. I agree with you, brother Ujahu, that being corrected is not, a valid, place to say that you've been disrespected, but it's how you do it. I will say it's when you do it, and the pathway through which you do it. But I think that ultimately, I'm gonna say what I said last night. I think one of the biggest problems that we have here is that there's almost like I don't know. It's like people want to be scholars, and the scholarship thing has taken on it's kind of saying in the same way the whole be a scholar thing has taken on a life of its own, where people it seems they're not really caring about how do we make how do we work this into our lives, our daily lives? What is Ma'at? How do we, live Ma'at? If we have problems, how do we apply Ma'at to it? How do we, what like the brother said earlier, what the Patahu Tep say about it? Do we respect what he said? Did it work? And if it didn't work, what can we do better? I think one of the biggest problems is that when it comes to, we can debate these historical things all the we for years people have been debating that kind of stuff, but when it comes to the social development type stuff, people really aren't having those discussions, and when I say that, I'm applying it to Kemetic culture. So it's one thing to debate back and forth for years about culture. I'm sorry, about history, about whether or not the word was Kemet, about and all these things are necessary things. But when it comes down to it, what is most important, what's going to really kind of make us grow as a people and be able to handle these things a little bit more and make us mature a little bit as a quote unquote community. It's when we have an actual culture that we're actually adhering to together. That's where, that's when we become more of a family, rather than these, we say, fam here, we say, Abid, or we say, kindred, or what, we say these things, but as if we are going to be true to this particular, pathway, then at some point, we got to bring the teachings in. Now, I think some people, and I'm going to be done after this, I think some people seem to think that means become some kind of church type situation, where, I don't personally have a problem with it. All you needed to have a what do you say, what's the word I'm looking for? Give me a second here.
Code of conduct?
No, the code of conduct is what I'm looking for. It's something in the code of conduct. One that, you have to have a cult, an anti-cult, clause in it where you're actually dealing with the things that create cult-like activities. When you find a group, and this is what if I were going to go to them, I would say, here are some things that generally have led to cults. Here are some things that we find in cults, and you can find them. They're out there. I know because I went out there and I collected that information at one time. So the question is, what are those things? Okay, and can we go out there and say, Elder, can we get you to commit to this particular set of rules, or to add this in your rules or whatever, and I think, and if they can adhere to it, then what you have there is a point where you have some kind of unity between all of them, But anyway, that's a solution I would suggest. My anti-cult, clauses in our in our organizational codes, and so on and so forth.
Here's the thing with that, real quick, and mind you, I'm gonna remind everybody, let's try to be as concise as we can in our comments, because we only on point 2 and we got 3 more. So, and plus I want to
I think y'all just overcomplicated this thing, because, just sorry to interrupt, but it's like, it's not rocket science. I mean, it is about disrespect or respect. And let's be honest, I mean, there are no children in that particular scenario. Nobody's even under 20. So we all know what respect and what disrespect is. And to be quite honest, the disrespect comes from every single party. Like, if you're talking about, like that well-disguised disrespect that people do, the innuendos, it comes from both ends. It comes, people have complained about Jabari doing that. People have complained about Reggie doing that. The elder Baba Heru is very colorful with his words. Everybody knows that. So, that's part of it. And everybody's guilty on that part. So it's just about people just understanding, because all these people, everybody's grown. So it's just about understanding, like Rujao said, if you're going to say something and mean it. What is the point? If you feel disrespected, or if you want to disrespect somebody, disrespect them and mean it. Like, just don't go, don't try to hide your disrespect, like you're scared or something. So I think that's the problem. People want to hide under, all these, actions and words, and only because they're actually arguing over stupid things. Because if it was just about dealing with it on a scholarly manner, I cannot disrespect a point or an issue. Like, how do you disrespect an issue? I can only disrespect a person. So these people are arguing about each other instead of arguing about information. And that's where all these things come in. And it's just stupid, because everybody's an adult. Even children actually understand how to respect and people better than what we are seeing in this case. So I don't think it's rocket science. Everybody's guilty. And the only thing is, how do you go about it? If you're going to disrespect, do it, mean it. If you're going to, if you have a problem with a person instead of the issue, just say, I have a problem with so and so, and separate that from the information that other people are actually trying to correct. That's just it,
Beautiful. And that echoes what we said in our first discussion on the first day, where we got to talk about when we're talking about that, because you're absolutely right, 1000%. When we talk about that, we got to look at the climate that ushers and promotes that kind of behavior as well. And so you have this adversarial, oppositional type of climate where people are pitted against each other even before they have a point or issue of contention. So it's set up that way. It's set up. And so what I've said to people on both sides is that I don't want to hear or see nobody complaining, because people are in an environment where that is pushed and promoted, period. And so I don't want to see anybody crying and whatnot. It's like, you know the potential of falling off of a skateboard or whatever, and you skating, you're doing these fancy tricks and stuff, and you fall, and now you're complaining about falling. Like, wait a minute, falling is part of that, is part of it. So that climate produces or allows or even enables that kind of behavior where grown people are acting very immature with, like you said, with the innuendos and things. People know what's disrespectful and what's not. And I just wanted to clear up the fact that calling it something disrespectful, anybody could do that. So we don't want to go down that rabbit hole. So that's pretty much that. But I wanted to say, I brought up a specific example with Jabari, and then we know that, like, for example, I don't know if it's Baba Heru or Jabari, but people made fun of what they were wearing. And like I said before, poking fun at somebody, that is sensitive to context, because I've seen some Hebrew Israelites get poked at for what they wear. I've heard people say, "Hey, y'all look like the Isley brothers," and I've seen some Hebrew Israelites who laugh at that, like, "Oh, that's a good one." But then some Hebrew Israelites be like, "Oh, and they're offended by it." But it's based on the intent or the context in which those things are used, and we know better that when people insult, the intention is what's mattered, and so people get it.
Well, that particular video, right, that you showed, that was like 2 years ago, right? Didn't they have a debate after that?
No, that's the thing. That's the problem. These issues linger in an environment that allows it to linger and to become even more and more noisy. The video that I talk is from April 2018. That's 2 years ago. Two whole years ago, Jabari addressed the things that the brother Reggie has said. And what's interesting is that the issues that Reggie said and that Jabari addressed are the same issues that's being said 2 years later today. And so that shows the ineffectiveness of these platforms. These platforms are not made to solve and expand knowledge, to solve contention on a scholastic level, and to expand the body of knowledge. These platforms are not made for that, hands down. And we're seeing it. So you can't doubt that, because we're actually seeing the results of it. There's no way around that. And so 2 years. This is 2 years. 2 years. Same exact thing. Matter of fact, and see, this is one thing that I will say about the way that Jabari addressed it 2 years ago. If you were to watch that video, that is how you address it. Jabari prepared slides. He had it topic based, bulleted topic based. So he showed you what Reggie said that he's addressing, and so and so, and he addressed it point for point in a sequential fashion, and so on and so forth. All right. So but that was 2 years ago. And the same issues are going on right now. So to solve that, I mean, the way that this is handled is just all wrong from the get-go. And it's being encouraged. So that's the thing. So as far as disrespect goes, Emicat, I don't think any.
She said it best. She laid it out.
She laid it all out. So I don't think we have to come back to that right now.
Yeah. That's you got to drop the mic on that one.
Yeah, exactly. So Emicat, that's you put a period on that. So that's it. So let's move on.
Next we got to go to Ankh.
As far as a person, well now Ankh is known for, now listen, everybody knows Ankh will call somebody out of their name with a quickness, and he does it. So does Unc insult people? Yes, he
Without
does.
question.
So I mean, that ain't rocket science either. So Unc, matter of fact, one recent thing Unc said was, I don't know who he was talking about specifically, but he mentioned a short cook hat with this, that, and the
Yeah.
third, and everything, and some people laugh, but some people are offended by that and stuff. So Unc is a grown person, and he insults, call people out of their names or whatever the case is. So I mean, there's nothing really to say. So that's been happening, and I did see the post by Baba Heru. So that's what I'm saying. Emmy Cat laid it out already, because I saw a post by Baba Heru where he calls people traitors and some other colorful words as well. So as Emmy Cat said, at this point at least, it's coming from all sides, and when that happens, it's like, man, y'all just cut it out. You know what I'm saying? But it's not, because the overall containing platforms and things, the environment is ushering it in. It's pushing it. It's encouraging that kind of behavior. You know what I'm saying? The instigation, the jump on the big stage, get in the ring and stuff. This person against that person. We discussed it in our first night, so I don't want to revisit that. But like I said, Emmy Cat got the last word.
Hey Woo, I have some. Let me just ask you this one question, Woo.
Yeah.
What's worse, someone calling you a name or going behind your back?
Well, that's even subjective. But going to do what? What you mean going behind your back?
As far as, like, I don't understand why Jabari or anyone is complaining because of the character that they've shown, with the thing with Unc and Garfield. So I don't even understand why he's complaining, because he's already showed some character by that action he did with them.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, I see what you're saying.
saying.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
If you add everything together, as in totality, what everybody's doing.
Yeah, so I guess that's what Emmy Cat spoke to, because there's different range. There's an intensity of disrespect. We could put it in a range from 1 to 10, and then lay it on what number we think it is and stuff. But at the end of the day, we have an idea of what disrespect is, and it's coming from all sides at this point. And so, going behind your back with the Christian debate, I think that's what you're talking about. And then the name calling and stuff like that. It's at a point where, we all can agree that none of that should be going on, and it's kind of silly at this point. But it's not really much we could say, because it's happening on both sides. It's like, children, when you see two children arguing or fighting, and then you break it up, and then you hear the story, like, well, what happened? And then this child is saying one thing, the other child. At a certain point, you're like, all right, both of y'all cut it out. Both of y'all go sit in the corner. You don't, at that point, you don't even care who started it and who didn't, who did what, because it gets so noisy, gets so convoluted. So you're like, man, both of y'all go sit down somewhere. And on that issue, I think that's where we're at with this at this point. Now, earlier, we probably could have identified some things, but at this point, it's on both sides, and that's what MK is saying. So I don't want to try to add to what she said. That's it.
Do you think it's conducive to a learning environment, though, in terms of, like?
No, not at all.
No, okay.
No, it's not, and I say it all the time. These platforms are entertainment. That's it.
Yeah, but see, you know what? Now
Make money.
But the disrespect part, disrespect is one thing, but then when we get to the next part where we start talking threats physically, you know what I mean? That's when it really skyrocket to a whole nother level.
Yeah.
When people start talking about clapping back, you know what I mean? And you know what I mean?
Well, listen, the other side of the disrespect wall is that kind of talk and behavior. And so that's why we got to be careful, because, physical threats and stuff like that, or whatever, or even veiled threats, as they call, that comes on the other side of disrespect. If a person feels that they're being disrespected, depending on where on the 1 to 10 range that disrespect falls, that will be a causation for either a veiled threat or whatever. And
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
real.
Because I heard it. I heard. Man, Sinjetti saying things to Brother Reggie. Any other time, if I'm gonna come see you. I'm like, damn, we done went past scholarship, huh? We ain't even dealing with scholarship no more. Now we into if I see you, you know what I mean. If it's like, whoa, how we get here? Like,
Yeah, well, that's why we need to identify it and and hopefully prevent it. And what I said before, like everything we're saying so far, is offering a alternative, a solution for this from happening again. But it's very, very hard when the
Honestly, I don't see the solution if the solution is we are grown. I don't see that as a solution. I
no,
think
but
because
that's not all that we
if
said. That no.
okay, okay,
That's just that's just an actual fact. Like all of us
yeah.
on this panel
Well, yeah, the
we're
problem is
grown.
that if you remember what you said, that we are there's some things that are subjective. The unfortunate thing is that not everybody has the same level of maturity as we should have. Not everybody has been raised the same way, like the brother was saying earlier. We come from different walks of life, and then we have different things. And the only thing that can unify those types of things, let's put it this way: when we all walk in with all this crap, like let's put it, if you had all these brothers that we talking about instead of doing all this chopping up, out here on these wires, if you had all them brothers that worked at the same place, do you think they're gonna walk in the next day with that craziness at their job? They're not. They're not gonna do that. Why? Because there's something on paper. There's some standards in place, and they have been orientated in terms of those standards, and those standards are gonna be kept, or they're gonna be kicked out.
Okay,
And
so but I had to check. So what you're saying is, and you said something earlier. But here's the reality. The grown part of it is just a fact. Okay, we're grown, and like you said, people have a different level of maturity, and that goes for any community, whether it's a virtual online community or face to face, tangible community. That's just what it is. No, everybody, we're not a Borg. Everybody's not the same. So what happens is, even if you had a set of morals and ethics and stuff like that, that's not even enough. Why? Because they have to be enforced. Without enforcement, you can lay down 613 laws from the Torah or 42 from the Book of the Dead. It doesn't matter if those things, if you don't have a way of it being enforced or there's consequences to those things. And so that's not in place. And on top of that, not only are there no consequences, but the platforms and the environment is actually enabling and encouraging that type of behavior. So that's what we're facing. So it's not about people being grown. It's about what's going to happen now. What are we going to do? And like I said, I don't, like me personally, I've told all parties, I'm not trying to hear nobody complain. Because the elephant in the room is the enabling environment. On top of the multi-level maturity levels that people are on, the environment itself is detrimental. Period. And that's my stance, and that's why I say I'm not trying to hear nobody complain. As long as you keep stepping into that environment, don't complain. It's like, if you can't stand the heat, then get out the kitchen type of situation, because the kitchen is enabling that kind of behavior, and you keep stepping in that kitchen. So if you get burnt, then don't holler. I don't want to hear it.
Right, and you're right about these platforms, and I know it's, when Morpheus was talking about, it's not scholarship anymore. The point is, the scholarship never even started, because there's no such thing as a YouTube scholar. Like, all these things we're talking about, disrespect and all that. I mean, that's because people are actually on these YouTube channels pressing record and starting to talk, and then after, when they're done with the talk, they call it scholarship. So that's why I said, like, you cannot disrespect a piece of information. So if it was just about the information, you would have to, write it down. So instead of actually going and, talking about somebody this and somebody that, can you imagine if we actually had to write down these conversations as, in black and white? how ridiculous it would sound for somebody reading these things. So that's why I say, like, that's a whole different thing. So like Rujal said, that's entertainment. We don't even have scholarship on, from what we've seen so far. That's not scholarship. What we know as scholarship is what we did when there was a discrepancies with information. We wrote a book, as the Seshu, and then Rujal and Asa and Sanjeri, when there was this discrepancy with information and they were going for a debate, to prep for the debate, they wrote a book as well. And then they will continue, because I know that that wasn't the finished work. So that particular information will be done on paper. So nobody's going to disrespect anybody on paper. There's no underhanded stuff going on paper. So the only problem is because those platforms, and these are just people scrapping, like people just, it's fighting, with words. It's not scholarship. Anybody can call it scholarship, but it's not. So we have to really demarcate, and put a border on that. That what we are seeing right now is people just taking stuff from the street and going to, find, it's like people want to fight and they don't know what to fight about. So then they create they take something from scholarship to bring as a reason to fight. But that is not scholarship. So at the end of the day, we have to just realize that that is not scholarship. This is just grown people fighting on the YouTube channels. Just like you have all these reality TVs. That's what it is.
Yeah.
I completely agree, sister.
So,
go ahead.
Just real quick, because I want to move on to the next point. So this is Brother Chief X brought up a good point, and I saw his Facebook post. He made a point that people are cherry picking elders when it comes to this whole thing about disrespect and whatnot, disrespect. And so he brought up TD Jakes and things like that. And so, I hope everybody understands that this thing is indiscriminate. It doesn't matter, but it's just that TD Jakes is not a part and parcel of these conversations that we normally see in these circles. So that's just, he's like out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
Okay, but it does not exclude a person like TD Jakes either. This goes for everybody. This goes for anything. Disrespect is disrespect, period. And so we just got to work on that. But I'm saying, and last point that I'm making is that you can't even work on it if it's contained within an environment that promotes it. That's just it. You can't do it. You can't clean your kitchen floor while somebody's dumping dirt on it. That just doesn't happen. You gotta stop that first, then clean up. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we're dealing with. And so I don't.
One of my elders used to call it the get out of the way. Got to do the get out of the way. Focus on what we're doing over here, and not get involved in that foolishness over there.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that completely. That's pretty much what I've done most of my time. I've sat in my little room and wrote my stuff and did my research and kept out of that mess because it's foolishness.
Now I want to say this too, because I just in my experience with dealing with Unc, because everybody knows that I'm part of the Amara Squad and I deal with the brother Unc. When it comes to Unc, like I don't agree when Unc does call people out of their name, and Unc knows this, so it's no secret. I tell him online and offline. But one thing about Unc though is that he's consistent. Like he doesn't do the innuendo. Like if he's gonna say something about somebody, he says it. But then you have people who will do the innuendo and have the pump fake and stuff and have this passive aggressive victim type of vibe when they sling insults. And I've seen the brother Unc get insulted in that way, but Unc being the type of person that will just say what's on his mind, he'll say that publicly, and then people will look at what he says because he's direct with it, and then they won't look at the person who did the innuendo shot. And so I do want to speak to that because I have personal experience and have personally seen that. So that's not to justify Unc being disrespectful, but I want to be fair and say I've seen people throw shots at Unc, and I've seen Unc shoot back, but the way Unc shoots back is like he's more direct. He's like he'll call you something right there on his channel and stuff
Yeah,
like that. So we
yeah.
got to
You hit Unc.
keep it real.
You hit Unc with a stick. He hit you with a bat.
Exactly. Now me, I don't condone none of that, and Unc knows this. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not saying anything that haven't already said many times, but I want the audience listeners right here know that you know people throw shots at Unc too. You know, I matter of fact, somebody brought up Unc's mother at a time when Unc's mother had just passed. So you don't, man, that's just some straight stuff you don't mess with. I don't care if how you feel. You don't do that. But I've seen Unc go through that too. But again, I'm not condoning Unc insulting anybody or none of that stuff, but I want to share that because to keep it real, there's different ways people are disrespectful. And I think somebody said that earlier. So you got that slick way, and then you got that overt way. Okay, so I want to because you got like now Niger Valley civilization. Some people will throw a shot and hide their hand, whereas Unc, he'll throw a shot and then wave at you, like yeah, it's me, I did it. You know what I'm saying? So I just want people to understand that. All right. So I want to move on to the next point. If and this is a doozy, y'all. So the next point is spooky, where where the shrines and the temple is being accused of being religious, spooky, pseudo, and sometimes nuts or whatever. So let's just discuss that. So that's the next point, spooky.
Wow.
So who wanna kick that off?
I'll kick it off by just asking a question. Can we define that spooky?
Well, what do you think that is meant by that when people use it? Because religious. Well, let me define religious in that context. When what we do know is that it's being used as a pejorative statement, like a negative way. Okay, like oh, you're religious, like that's a letdown, a put down. What do you call it? Derogatory. Okay, so we don't have to know exactly what they mean, but at least we know that they mean something along the lines of derogatory.
Sometimes things can seem spooky because you really don't know what you're looking. Again, it just goes back to that same metaphor, like with Freemasons wearing aprons, or the one that I was talking about with, and even in the Christian church, because the church I was in when I was younger, they didn't drink grape juice; they actually drank wine, and saying it was the blood of Jesus. I was in the second and third grade, and I was like, "Whoa, this is weird." And that's his body. But then, and when I got into the Kemetic text, I started to see that they were putting netters in the cauldrons or the ovens, and you're supposed to eat them as well. So I mean, at that point, I really understood the metaphor and supposed to embody what those deities or those netters actually stood for. And the same thing with the Jesus thing. So I understood what it meant, but from the outside looking in, just like with the aprons, or I don't really know how much I should get into with the Freemasonry, but uh, like it seems really strange when you see kind of going through things. It's like, what is that? But it's a lot of things just like that. So in terms of the spooky thing, sometimes it only seems spooky when you're talking about something that somebody else might not know. It goes outside of the circumference of their understanding. So it's like, whoa, that seems spooky. It might even, it's so looking at voodoo or something from an outside lens or perspective, it will seem spooky for a minute. And it's really cool because it keeps a lot of outsiders or people who aren't ready or on that level out thinking this and that, before they really step forward. It keeps, a lot of people at bay. So it's kind of cool to scare people off and have people think it's spooky yeah, okay, stay over there until you can understand, that nobody's really walking on water. Just stay over there thinking that, people are doing this, or stay over there thinking that men are wearing different type of aprons and, going through these different things. Keep thinking that so that everybody won't just, come to it. It's sort of, it's a filter, it's a filtration, it's sort of filtering people, sort of a filtration system, so that you don't get a whole lot of people just jumping into something, because then once you get in, you see it's not that. That's just addressing the spooky part, and then but the pseudo part, I guess we take one at a time. I don't want to keep going. I'll just
Well,
stay.
well. On the spooky side, I don't think anyone has a monopoly or able to dictate. This is how you should do it. This is what you should believe. This is what you shouldn't believe, right? And they actually have, in many civilizations, coexisted. You understand, where you have some people who are actually, um, like the intellectual side of things, right? And some people who, it actually resonates with them, and some people, the as we said, spooky or unseen things, or the mysteries, or the exotic things. Those things resonate with certain people, right? So, but you can't say this is how you should do it, or you should be spooky, or you shouldn't be spooky, right? They can coexist. They have always coexisted. They have always coexisted in many different civilizations, and groups of people, is those who, if I look in the real world, when I look into the real world, this is what I really see. You like some people who resonate on those type of frequencies. Some people like Gano grills. Some people need that. That exotic, mystery. Some people like that stuff, bro. Some
There's
people,
a place for all of it, right?
right.
Yeah.
There's some people like it and it resonates with them, and some people it don't resonate with. So for those that don't, then go to the circle of those who, who's on the same frequency you on. You know what I mean? But to be able to dictate this is how it should be, and you shouldn't do that, and you shouldn't. I think that's insane. Me
So
personally, I just
okay,
think that's insane.
all right. So let's
I'll
do
stop.
this. All right,
I
let's do
got
this. Let's do this real quick.
Hotep.
Hotep,
Go, Jack.
Antoine. Um,
Not gonna,
you want to say something about that?
y'all gonna say the problem you run into is basically which one's gonna move our people forward. That's where that comes into.
Yeah, but let me do this though on that spooky issue. Um, let me say this, that the way that the word spooky is being used, that how we hear it, people are misusing it. All right, let's first establish that, because spooky means something that is scary or frightening, and the way that people are using it is not in that sense. So they're changing what it means, or what it originally meant. Now we come up with a new sense for it, and so it's almost likened to pseudo, which means fake, or an imitation. So they're using spooky to be kind of synonymous with the word pseudo, and they're using both spooky, pseudo, both of those words synonymously with religious. So now we have three words that are now becoming equal to each other. Spooky equals pseudo equals religious, and that's how it's being utilized in the social community people call the conscious community. And so now that becomes ambiguous, and that becomes a pejorative term that's slung around. And that's a problem. So no matter which one they use, that's the meaning behind it. That's the intention and how it's being used. No matter which one of those three words that people choose. And that's not fair, because in scholarship, when you drill down and you actually put some rigor into your studies, you'll realize that everybody's religious, because you'll know what a religion actually is. And you'll know what, pseudoism or pseudoscience actually is. Because when people say pseudo, it's short for pseudoscience. When something's being passed off as something that is really not. That's what pseudo is. And so pseudo is the more valid, attached meaning that being used, because what the shrines are being accused of is that what they do, you know, from carrying of the oversized or the big sized unk, from the wearing of certain clothes, from the different prayers and the certain rituals that they do, they're being accused of not being authentic. And so that would be the definition of pseudo. Okay, that's pseudo. That's passing it off as something that is really not. And but Jabari clarified that somewhat, because he explained a 3-tier system that they have, where they have some things they do that they feel are exactly like the ancient Egyptians. They have a middle tier where things that they do are simply inspired by the ancient Egyptians, and then a third tier where it's just purely modern and made up, innovated. And so the only way you can call somebody pseudo is if they're trying to pass off something as something that is really not. And that's what it really boils down to. And if we were to iron that out, then we can get to the core of it and find out, okay, well, what exactly is it, and how do we address it? How do we correct it, or whatever? So what do y'all say about that?
Stuff that they the third tier, the stuff they made up would be the stuff that we consider pseudo.
Yeah, but do they have a right?
But wait, hold on, one second.
Go ahead.
See, the third tier, you can't call the third tier spooky. I mean, pseudo, because what I'm saying is that if I make up a ritual, and I gave this example last night. If I make up a ritual, and I'm telling y'all that it's exactly what the ancient Egyptians did, but it's really not, then that's pseudo, because I'm trying to pass something off as something that it's really not. That's pseudo. But if I create a ritual myself, I created it wholeheartedly, and I tell y'all I created it. I say, hey, look at what I created. I created this, and then you like it or whatever, and you start to perform the ritual. That's not pseudo, because everything is transparent. I told you I made it up. You like it, you perform it, we both do it, then 12 people do it. Next thing you know, 50 people do it. That's what we do. That's not
Kwanzaa.
Yeah, is Kwanzaa pseudo? No, nobody would label Kwanzaa as being pseudo. That's a good point.
I don't know. I think Kwanzaa pseudo.
You think Kwanzaa is pseudo, but I'm saying
what?
I think we started throwing so much stuff into the pseudo category, like it just kind of messed up, like what pseudoscience or what pseudo really was.
So then the irony of it is by just throwing anything in there, that you feel is fake, and you're not really having a strong way of categorizing that, you're actually you're being pretty much, ironic. It's like, you can't just say anything is pseudo.
Right. So it comes back down. Somebody was about to ask the question: do people have a right to create and innovate? The answer is yes. I think everybody will.
I was asking that.
Right.
We have an imperative.
Right. I think everybody will agree to that. I think everybody will agree that people have a right to innovate and make up something. Now, the pseudo aspect comes in, and this is where the scholarship comes in, is if people make up something and then pass it off as something that it's not. So the example, I create a ritual, and I tell you all that this is what the ancient Egyptians did, and I'm 100% wrong as 2 left feet. That is pseudo. And then how do you handle it? You handle it by correcting me, by showing whatever the case is. And that's pseudo. But if I make up a ritual and I tell the public that I made it up, that's not pseudo. It can't be pseudo. And I give you a real example. Ra-un-Nefer Amen, who is the head of the Asar Set Society, he created and made up a divination system based on a deck of cards, a card divination system. In his book, he tells you all that stuff. We can't call that pseudo because he tells you that it's made up. That's not. He's not saying the Egyptians had cards and turned them upside down and shuffled them and picked these cards out. He's not making that claim. So we can't deem that pseudo, but some people do, and that would be an incorrect application of calling things pseudo. So we get a little lax with that word pseudo, and
Yeah,
and
it's a
and
loaded
religious
word.
and spooky, right?
And another, to be honest with you, I mean, we have to be careful about, even saying that we. I mean, let's put it this way. I think sometimes we don't use the word theory enough, or hypothesis, things like that. I think sometimes, you know, uh, uh, if we have an idea and we're working it and it needs to be hammered out, it's okay. Somebody might come and hammer it out for you. But I don't see anything wrong with moving towards something, and having as a work in progress. And then if somebody sees something off, okay, then you change it, or you don't change it. It really depends. But I think the whole idea about just not, everything being, made up. I think we have to be careful about even just saying that sometimes, because I mean, everything we see is made up. These letters that we're looking at in front of us, that's made up. Everything is made up. That doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't facts. And I'm not
Exactly.
trying to say play fast and loose with the facts. And
Yeah.
but I do think we got to be careful about. Let's put it this way: sometimes there's something we can swear up and down. We got it. It's a fact, and then lo and behold, we find some new information that contextualizes this, and sure enough, it wasn't exactly that. you
Hey,
know.
so I want to hear from Chief X. I know he just joined in, but before you speak, Chief X, because I know you probably got something to say on this subject. Um, I do want to lay out this as well. Okay, not only is something that somebody does is often called pseudo incorrectly, but then you have people themselves being called pseudo. And so that gets real slippery too, because it's an issue of if I was to make a mistake, if I tell y'all that 1+1 is 3 by and I made that mistake, am I pseudo because I made a mistake? No, most people won't call me pseudo for that. So when people are called pseudo, it's usually a result of a pattern. Just like liar. Like if I tell, like, the question, how many lies does a person have to tell before they're called a liar? As if that's a brand of their character, you know? And so if you tell one lie, you lied, but nobody's gonna say that you are a liar, like, just to put that on you. So the same thing happens with the word pseudo. So we gotta be kind of careful with that. But go ahead, Chief X, if you got, let's hear from the chief of X's.
Dash
Okay, can you
reincarnated.
hear me pretty good?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, I was wondering, do I need to put on my headset? Because I guess you can hear me pretty good.
Yeah, if you can hear us, we can hear you good.
Yeah, but okay. So with the word pseudo, I kind of agree with Drauro. A lot of people use it out of context. Um, but the term pseudoscience has been used in science circles forever. It's not like new to science circles when people discussing science. Um, so when Amin Ra Squad began to have a lot of different science topics and not just history, then Amin Ra Squad and different people started using the word that's pseudoscience.
Mm-hmm.
So nowadays people leave off the science and just say pseudo,
Right. Yep.
okay,
Yep.
and apply it wrong. I never call someone pseudo, just like the last example Ujaro gave. I don't call someone pseudo because they're wrong or got something wrong or just genuinely were wrong. Um, Use this related to a science topic. Now, like say for instance, Phil Valentine. I may say, okay, he teaches a lot of pseudoscience. So sometimes I may use it out of context, but I'm usually referring to someone who's speaking on the science topic. And I'll say, okay, they're pseudo. But I'll never use it just for someone because they're wrong about a topic. You get what I'm saying, Wujaro?
Exactly. But that's important that people be mindful of that, like everybody, because I've seen people just use it because somebody's wrong. And words can develop, it can take a life of its own. And like you hear some people say, "Oh, that's pseudo," and when they say that's pseudo, they're really replacing the word wrong. They're really saying, "Oh, that's wrong." You see, and so that word pseudo has that grew, that word has grown a whole new life, and people got to be mindful of how they're dealing with it and how they're using it and things like that. But these shrines and Kemetic practitioners are being labeled as pseudo practitioners, or pseudo and so on and so forth. And really, that the real solution, I mean, I guess the solution to that, it boils down to the things we already said. People can ask for clarification. Like I said, in a PR, point of contact, PR, whatever, and stuff, because a lot of things now I know out of history, and I'm sure you all probably experienced this. There's a lot of things that people interpret as being either spooky or pseudo, but then come find out later that it's not. And so what pseudo represents in that case is ignorance. So just because you're ignorant of something or how it's done or whatever the case is, you may at that time label it as pseudo, but once you educate yourself on it or get clarification, you may come to find out that it's not pseudo at all. And so we got to be mindful of that. And that will be moving forward. People need to seek answers and clarification. And if you feel like you've exhausted all your means and it's still messy or messed up, then you're like, okay, well, hey, that's pseudo. That's pseudoscience. And that's what scientists do. When a scientist labels something pseudoscience, you best believe they've done their due diligence. Like they are falsifying things. Like, oh, that's pseudoscience. Like alkaline, like Chief X, I know you dealt with alkaline, the alkalinity issue. And so people put science to it and they demonstrate. That's the difference. They demonstrate how wrong it is. And they can say, well, anybody pushing that is pseudoscience.
They did the same thing with people who don't eat meat for a while. They were like, people saying that a vegetarian or not eating meat is really healthy for you. They said that it was pseudoscience for a long time. For me, myself, I'm 35 and I haven't ate any meat or have any animals in 33 years. And I'm still alive. I'm still healthy. I still can do everything more than a lot of other people can do. And I knew the whole time that, it was okay because I've been living like this my whole entire life as a choice from a child. But I remember people saying, and people still say it to this day, some people on the channel. I even heard, I think it was Ankh said something about it. I can't remember what show it was, but just talking about people pushing certain type of lifestyles or eating styles, and that it gets really tricky just because you don't eat like that or you haven't, or you think that you might die if you stop eating dead animals. I feel like I will if I ever eat an animal, if I even come close to tasting anything like it. So I knew it was BS. So to call that pseudoscience, now they have new documentaries that could have came out supporting that. But for a long time, people said that, they would start maybe in the middle of their life, but I've been doing it my whole life, so they wouldn't know, you know what I mean? And they would say certain things about it. And I mean, I lift weights, I do all sorts of stuff, and I know I'm okay. And they say, oh, you wouldn't get enough protein. And this plant isn't going to support that. And, they're looking for different facts, but you can't just call it pseudo because there isn't, just because you don't have the science at the time to support it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
that's another example.
Well, what you're saying is an issue of not being able to demonstrate. And that's what I'm saying. When people make claims, they gotta support and demonstrate the support for their claims. And if people can't do it, then people can't take those things with any weight. I can't call something pseudo just because I don't understand it. If I'm gonna call something pseudo, I am responsible for demonstrating why it's pseudo and showing the evidence for it. If I can't do that, then I should keep my mouth shut. And that should go across the board.
And like no one should call you pseudo for being a vegetarian. That's using it out of context.
Yep.
Now, if you were specific and you said plants give you better protein than meat does, then someone can say that that's pseudoscience, and they can be specific.
Right. No one called me pseudo. No, they were saying that lifestyle is founded on pseudoscience. You know what I mean? And anyone that lives that lifestyle is founded on pseudoscience because plants can't do this and can't do that. So I wasn't saying that.
No, nutrition. Listen, nutrition is a science that people gotta really slow that down and get into. Like, you can't really play around with that. It's very intricate because the way the body works and stuff. A lot of people who talk like that, they don't even really know how the body works. I was actually surprised on the whole vaccine issue, how many people did not even know how the immune system works, but yet they either arguing for or against vaccines. And that amazed me recently, with those kind of talks late last year. And that was crazy to me. So the same thing happened with the different quote unquote eating styles of pescatarian, vegetarian, vegan, and all the other kind of stuff. I see the same kind of things in that too. So people got to slow it down and treat nutrition as a science. Like, look at it scientifically, look at it, look at the minerals and stuff. Like even with the whole alkaline thing, that was going on for a long time until people decided to really look into it and find out otherwise what people were saying, because what people were saying was not backed up by science in the first place, but people assumed it and rolled with certain things, so it's just real interesting. But like I said, I don't want to harbor on any one point. So if anybody got, because we're talking about the pseudo, they're being accused of it now. So let's just say what I'm just going to say what Jabari's been saying recently in response to stuff like that, is that's where you get into the conversation about the difference between figurative expressions and taking things literal. So, like, for example, a lot of the religious stuff comes out of the jousting and the attacks that have been laid against the Bible, really. So Jabari is known as the Floyd Mayweather of the conscious community. And he received that title from Netcher when Jabari was going at the Hebrew Israelites. Like, everybody knows that. And so it makes it seem like he's attacking their belief, their Bible, and all that good stuff. And with the beliefs and stuff. And we know everybody in the community attacks the Bible. Oh, do you really believe that snakes talk and this and that? Everybody kind of goes at them with that. So now the pushback is like, okay, Mr. Jabari or Mr. So-and-so, you believe in Egypt. Well, the Egyptians believed that a crocodile mixed with a hippo, mixed with a lion is going to eat your heart in the afterlife, and blah, blah, blah. You're just as spooky. If you're calling us spooky, you're just as spooky as us. See, that's where all that stuff grew out of, all that stuff going back and forth. Even today, and how the most latest is the sit down between Robborn and Jabari. I don't know who saw that, but that is like a direct result of but now that was a friendly conversation that they had. That was, a nice friendly conversation, but the fact that they had that conversation is because of all this stuff over the years and years and years, because Robborn used to catch it with the whole 5% lessons about the Yaqub being 6 years old or whatever in the backyard of his uncle, playing with a magnet. He discovered, he wanted to create a weaker germ, call it the devil and all this other kind of stuff. Daddy Shabazz, Nation of Islam lessons, 5% lessons. People can easily call that spooky or pseudo if you take it literally. But Robborn would defend it by saying, no, you don't supposed to take it face value. You suppose, it doesn't really mean blah, blah, blah. And so that's why I was surprised that Robborn would ask the questions about Kemet the way he does, though. It's kind of strange. But anyway, I just want to let y'all know that that's where that stuff kind of comes out of. And now you got, now it's just not the Hebrews, the one that's pushing back at the quote unquote Kemetics, because you had Kemet on trial and all that kind of stuff 4 or 5 years ago. Now it's just not them doing it. Now it's just a free for all. You know what I mean? So you got, like, Reggie is looked at as a Nile Valley, a person who deals with Nile Valley civilization. So he's like a Nile Valley civilization scholar. That's what people would generally identify Reggie as. And so if he studies Kemet and he talks about Kemet and everything like that, now he's talking to another person who deals with Kemet and so on in the form of Jabari. So it seems like Kemet on Kemet now, whereas before it was, you know, Hebrew Israelites punching back and forth and everything. You see what I'm saying? So anyway, that's like the backdrop. Started years ago with that, but I want to have another discussion totally outside of this on that topic of figurative expression and literal. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, want to have that discussion. So anything else on this? Because we had two more, but really we really covered the other two. We really covered the other two. The other one was asking for clarification. We already spoke to that really. And 5 is, are they grounded in a moral system? Well, I guess we didn't do 5. So let's jump to the 5th point. And that is, are they grounded in a moral or spiritual system? By they, these are the people on the side of the Kemetic practitioner side asking the other side, are you even grounded in some kind of moral code or system, a spiritual system, etc.? So what do y'all have to say about that?
Can you say that one more time?
Okay, the last point, because we really covered 4 already. The last point, the 5th point, is the question coming from the Kemetic practitioner side to the non-practitioner side is, what are you grounded in? Are you grounded in some kind of moral or ethical code or spiritual system? They, you know, that's like something that they ask.
May I?
Right. So my opinion on that, Wujaro, this is Chief X. Like, I remember we used to have discussions, and I used to say there was morality before there was a Bible. Okay. So the Bible is not the authority on morality. So I also am of the opinion I get my morals and morality from my parents. They taught me what to do and what not to do. It's just a family cultural thing, in my opinion. What do you think?
Oh, well, yeah, but the question is, like, I guess that, you know, the question is coming from, like, okay, it's accountability. The question is like cloaked in the topic of accountability. Like, for example, Jabari is a high priest of the Shrine of Ma'at. He and his wife. Baba Heru is a high priest of the Shrine of Ptah. The brother Rakheper is the high priest or Nasut of the Temple of Anu. Now, when you approach these people, they stand on a system that you can hold them accountable to. So, like, for example, you can hold Jabari accountable to the so-called 42 declarations of innocence. And so you can expect that conduct to come out of the Shrine of Ma'at, and you can hold them accountable to it. So their question is, what can we hold you all accountable to in terms of the other side? You see what I'm saying? That's the issue. Like, it's really accountability. Like, what are you grounded in? What is your system? Exactly. What is your system? What can I judge you by? Because I don't, like, you know, because if otherwise you're just a freelancer. Like, you could just act any kind of way with no accountability.
Science doesn't have a accountability system.
No,
not in the sense that scientists also is whoever is doing science also has a backing of some kind of system. Like somebody else would say, you know, I'm an IFA practitioner or things like that. So you understand that they have some kind of system that backs them, you know, their the moral code, and within a collective, and how they, you know, that judges or dictates how they interact with other people per se, or other communities.
I agree. I agree with Chief X on this one. You have an innate moral system. Some people, it's been proven in even unconscious creatures.
That's a fact. I really agree with that because, like I said, when I was 3, I felt there was something wrong with like just killing animals and eating them. But my parents were like, "What are we gonna feed you?" Like they didn't know. But I don't even remember, so they had to tell me. But I remember as I got a little older, I was like, something just didn't seem right with me at that time. Now that's sort of outside of it, but I think that's a good answer. I think you brought up a good point, just talking about the innate moral system. Some people might be in tune with it a little bit more, but a quick answer is like truth, justice, and righteousness. Just balance would be the one that I would say. That doesn't mean like turn the other cheek and hit me on the other side to equal out the occasion. That means if you hit me, I'm gonna hit you back. So I
Well,
think
this
that's
is okay, but let me clarify something for everybody on listening too. Science is something that you do, just like you eat. Nobody would ever ask, does eating have a moral or ethic code? Okay, so what's at issue here is when we say moral and ethic code, we're talking about how human beings solve conflict. And so if you don't stand on a code that will dictate or prescribe conflict resolution, that's what the issue is. And so, for example, and I'm going back to Jabari and that side of things, they have they stand on a system that tells you how to do that. Whereas a scientist, that's not what science answers. That's something that you do. Science is something that you do. It's research. It's a method. Scientific method is something that you do. So that's their question. What is the set of rules or instructions that you stand on that tells you how to interact and interreact with human beings and solve conflicts between human beings? That's what
Well,
I
that's what the issue
understand.
is.
I think. Sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Amy Cat.
I was gonna say that okay, so on the shrines, on the people on the shrine, they have they stand on their system, which they practice in those shrines. Now when we look at on this other end, we had Ankh, Reggie, and who else was on our side?
Garfield.
And Garfield. So on Ankh's side, I know that Ankh says he's the real black atheist. So I would say that on his particular end, you know, I'm not sure about what you would call that as a system or anything like that. And then on Reggie's end, on the other interview, I think last week on Sanetta, because Sanetta did ask him specifically, do you have any spirit? Do you practice any spiritual belief system? And I can't quote him word for word, but what he said was that Reggie does something that he would call, he just practices what Reggie. So he didn't say what kind of system he was grounded in that sense. On Garfield's end, I don't know. So yeah, somebody
Okay,
else can add.
so we have Unc as a real black atheist, Reggie practicing Reggieism, and Garfield is undetermined. So that's what the shrines are asking. What can we hold you accountable to in terms of how you solve conflict between human beings and things, and that's what is roughly defined as a moral code or ethics on human interaction. And so if a person is not rooted in something that has structure, then you tend to be loose with it and you'll behave a certain way. And that's what that side is accusing the other side of is the very loose behavior without structure. You see, and so that's what's going on. But I think somebody was gonna say something.
I was gonna say that just kind of piggybacking off something you said earlier. Basically, what you have here, you have really just two different cultural groups, or more than that, really, when you bring in Ankh West, which, by the way, I was never sure if he was saying that he's dealing with evolution there, and he's kind of getting rid of the Christian God type deal and kind of dealing with Kepra as evolution itself or something like that. I just never really understood clearly what he was talking about there. But having said this much, you got the scientific method, and that's and there are rules there, and roughly that's what you can say that what's his name that Reggie was holding Baba Heru up to last night. I loosely, that's what I kind of gathered. That's what he was trying to do. The problem is that number one, you all haven't agreed on that. you know. Number two, that you're gonna do that within each other, and then on the flip side, Reggie is doing Reggieism. He's not on the 42. He's not necessarily holding his guiding his life by Kagemi, Pitahatep or anybody, he's not really necessarily doing that. And I think then what you have there is that you have two different groups who think who's basically, the entire the cognitive structure is pretty much different. you know, you have two different groups here, two different tribes, so to speak. And either you're going to come together and change that and meld them together, because I think it can be done. I don't think that scientific method it has to be something outside of Kemetic tradition. I think that Kemetic tradition was the one who came up with all that stuff. you know. But or at least definitely pioneered it early on. So I just think you gotta, if you're not going to kind of address these two different cultures as two different cultures, and then try to deal with them, and then fix them by acknowledging them and finding the places where they can kind of work together, then I don't really know what's going on.
Yeah. So, on that, I think that question is still open, and that's probably a question that side can clarify. I think Reggie can clarify. If he was asked directly by, let's say a Jabari. Same thing with Brother Unk and Garfield. But what we should understand about that, though, we can't say science, though, because science is not made for that. Science, the rules and methods of science does not address human conflict. The rules and methods of science is on how you know when you know something. That's what science means. It's a method of discernment, to know. That's what the word science means, to know. And so, how do you know when you know something? And so there's a procedure for it. And it's called a scientific method, and they slightly vary from scientific discipline to another scientific discipline, but they're roughly the same: falsifying and eliminating error. But that doesn't speak to human interactions and conflict resolutions and things like that. And that is
but there's a science to that, brother.
Oh yeah, there. See, when you say there is a science to it, you're saying there is a knowledge about that. Yes, but science.
And you can only come by that by doing studies, collecting information, having, getting your, collecting, anecdotal information, going through from that to your hypothesis, and then from hypothesis all the way through.
But in that with that logic, there's science to everything. So there's a science to everything.
Of course, I mean, I think there is.
Yeah, exactly. So if there's a science to everything, then we don't have to isolate, because it's everything. So what I'm saying is that the way, if I say I'm doing science, if somebody were to ask me, well, what are your moral codes and ethics? If I answer them by saying science, that doesn't fit. That doesn't fit in that. That's what I'm saying. That doesn't fit. So morals and ethics is grown out of the when enough people acquiesce to the taboos versus not taboos. Because like if we were to look at the animal kingdom, the creatures we call animals, even though we're also animals, if we look out in the wild, we'll see animals kill other animals, and we may be bothered by that, but that's natural for them, and we can't project our botheredness and our morals on them, and vice versa. Even from country to country, that's why we have diplomatic relations. China has different set of laws than those of us here in the United States, and so groups of people, populations of people have different morals and ethical codes and things that they do, and I'm saying it's grown out of the acquiescence when people acquiesce to these things, and it's part and parcel of a culture. That's what makes up a culture. How you solve a group of people's problems. So that's what that's what they're asking. So what are you standing on? What is that?
Well, that's why I brought up. That's why I brought up mod last night. Okay, go ahead, brother. I'm sorry.
The problem with that is here's the problem. Real quick, I'm sorry. The problem is this, right? When they call Reggie and them traitors, right? You got to look at what's happening because for years people think that because you teach on a particular subject that you also believe the same thing that they believe. That's very important, right? So now they're finding, oh, so you don't, oh, so Reggie, you don't, and he's like, no, I don't. And it's like, oh, you're a traitor. Oh, he's a traitor, right? Because it's almost like they feel like you don't have the right to even, you know, question their practices or anything on Kemet because you don't believe it.
Well,
You know what I mean?
that's called assumption and expectation, and so
Yeah.
people because Reggie focuses a lot on Nile Valley civilization, the assumption is that he believes it or he follows
Right.
it, and so when he shows otherwise, then people get like surprised and say, "Oh, you're a traitor," and so that comes from assumption and then the expectations. So on Reggie's part, he I think he's clarified that now, but all along you gotta be mindful to clarify that to people. Like, listen, because if I were to study classical Greek philosophy and or whatever case, I'm not trying to be a Greek or anything. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to be that or whatever. I'm just trying to understand it, to get to know it and be familiar with it and be acquainted with it.
Yeah, well, that's like me assuming you Wuja. That's like me assuming. Okay, well, you teach Netcher. Am I to also assume that you are a practitioner? Am I to assume that you are, you know what I mean, a believer of of the Kemetic, culture because you teach, Netcher? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, right. And that's what I'm saying. People will tend to do that because of assumption. But see, like me, I'm mindful of that. I tell people straight up before they can even finish the question, do I practice what I say? Nope. Real quick.
Well, see that I think that's what happens though. If you got somebody that's critiquing you and they're not even necessarily, and I'm kind of maybe I wasn't there. I don't know exactly, but maybe this is where the whole trader thing came from as well. If you're dealing with somebody who's critiquing you and they're not really necessarily concerned with developing the culture itself, but rather they're just it's an object of study for them, and it's an object of economic development. Maybe I mean I don't know. There's a lot of things and they may have and none of those things are necessarily bad, except if you're critiquing me and you're not really trying to grow the culture, but he is, then and he spent years doing it, then maybe that's where it kind of like, look, man, I'm doing this work for a long time. If you don't even care about this stuff I done worked on, why are you even critiquing me? You don't know me,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
So,
I think somebody else was gonna say something. Yeah, because I wanna yeah, go ahead.
I get what you're saying about the what system or moral code people are to hold by from what they believe in, and just an example. So, just say for instance, Jabari stands on Mayat, truth, justice, reciprocity, and so on. So, if you enlighten him about um what's the word you say that doesn't mean white people?
Oh, the
Tamahu.
word tamahu, right?
Tamahu, yeah. So if you enlighten on him on the word what the word tamahu means and its origins and where it comes from, and you clearly show him, you can hold him accountable to my eye, and he has to be truthful and say, "Okay, you're right, and I
Yep.
was wrong."
Yep.
Exactly. And see, that's the thing. See,
Yep.
I've never, although I addressed that as a general issue, I've never addressed Jabari directly with the issue. So as of right now, I haven't dealt with him directly with that issue. I just addressed it as a teaching thing for everybody, um, because a lot of people use it. Jabari's not the only one. Nuwapians use that Tamahu and stuff like that as well. So I addressed it just in general. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, I think it was, and that's the thing that we talked about before, not to diverge a little bit, but is that that's the difference. You addressed an issue. If somebody else would have gotten a hold of the information that you had on the white Tamahu, I guarantee you it would have been, something about titled about going against Jabari.
exactly.
Because he will be the
Right.
one at the forefront of using that word, that we know of at this point. So that is actually the very different thing about people who actually take the scholarly work serious and
Ex-
just focus on the information and the issues as opposed to focusing on debating a
Person.
person and things of that
But
nature.
that's how you
And
know it's personal.
right.
Right.
And then I wanted to say that on the other issue about the moral grounding, the question could also be asked if it was somebody, if these issues were between the those people in the shrines and other people, maybe a different group of people practicing Ifa and all that, would we see that that same kind of approach, or would they actually because of their grounding system, would they know how to approach another group of people who practice a different kind of system?
Yeah, that would be a good question to ask and let people, um, respond and answer that. And so that's the difference. So I'm glad you brought that up. But that was a difference between me. I didn't address Jabari. I wasn't going against Jabari. I was addressing the actual claim or the information, and that's why I didn't mention Jabari. So but I do know that Jabari is one of many people that equate the Tamahu with Europeans or white people. So I just address it as an issue. And maybe when I never met Jabari or anything like that, and if I ever enter a conversation that comes up, then I'll be more than happy to share information. Now I have dealt with Jabari before online, but that was a different subject. It was with the Kemetic yoga presentation I did with the poses, and Jabari was it was straight. It was cool. It was a good back and forth. I mean, not a back and forth, but a good a quick conversation. It wasn't even that long. It was just us posting and comments on a post where I think where he left off was that he was going to look into some more things or something. But that's as far as that went with him. But listen, what I want to do is I want to. Last night I mentioned nomenclature, and I mentioned the fact that every single specialized field of study creates a nomenclature of words. They're very specific in how they use words, even if they're normal words used on the street. They define words within the context of that discipline. And so what I want to do is I want to unspookify, unpseudofy, and religify, or whatever, if there's such words, these words, these ambiguous, misused words in the so-called conscious community. All right, so y'all just bear with me. Give me 3 minutes. I'm going to do this. So we're going to start with the word praise. All right, and I'm going to the historical layout of these words. A lot of people misunderstand etymology to be the origin of a word, and that's not what etymology is. Etymology includes the origin, but also the historical development, the evolution of how words are used and so on and so forth. So don't let anybody tell you that it's just for origin, because words change over time. Their usage change over time. And so an etymological analysis of a word will reveal how those changes occurred and what they are. So anyway, the word praise. I'm just going to read. It's on the screen. Despite a certain similarity in form and meaning, praise has no connection with pray, the word pray. It comes ultimately from the Latin pretium, which is price, which has also given English precious, price, prize, etc. From it was derived the late Latin verb pretiere, which is value, highly praised, which English acquired via Old French presier. I'm probably butchering these pronunciations. But from this, you can see what I said last night. Praising something is to put a value or a price on it. And again, this word, the siblings of this word is precious, as it says, a price, and prize. So when you praise someone, you're basically giving them a value or giving them a price. And so
worthiness.
Well, I don't want to go to worthiness yet,
Okay.
because that's going to be something else. But with this understanding, if we're going to have conversations with this understanding, you'll see why it's very normal for people to praise their mothers and fathers, their people who have accomplished things in their community, and people that stand out and have done extraordinary things for other people. You praise them because you put a price on them of high value. Okay? Praiseworthiness is a state that somebody is in when they do something that people can put a high value to. Okay? So that's the word praise. And I'm going to the next word.
Alhamdulillah.
The next word, yeah, Hamud. The next word, veneration. So I'm gonna read it. Veneration comes from the Latin Venus, which meant love or charm. It came ultimately from the same Indo-European base as pronounced English wish and winsome, and the Sanskrit wacha, which means wish. It was not that common as a generic term, its most familiar role being as the name of a Roman goddess of love. From it was derived venereus, which means of sexual love or sexual intercourse, which English borrowed and adapted as venereal. You know, people heard the phrase venereal disease, which means a disease you acquired through the act of sex. Okay? The term venereal diseases dates from the 17th century. Other contributions made by Latin Venus to English include venerable and venerate. Okay? So, you can read this and see that to venerate someone is to love them, is to show love for them. So we venerate our elders who are living, we venerate our parents, we venerate our siblings, and so on and so forth. So now you'll see that veneration, there's no spookiness, no pseudoness, no pejorative way to possibly use this word or the one praised before that. So I'm going to keep moving. Next word, devotion. What does that mean? Essentially, the word devout and devote are the same word. They come from an identical source, but reach English along two different routes. The source is devotus, the past participle of the Latin devolvere, which was a compound formed from the intensive prefix de and volvere, which means to promise. The source of the English vote and vow. When you take your marriage vows, guess what? You're making promises. You are devoting yourself to your wife or your husband. This entered English originally via Old French devote or devout as an adjective and was then reborrowed directly from Latin in the 16th century as the basis of the verb. So it's related to the word vote and vow. So there's no problem with devoting. Every time you vote for a president every 4 years or a congressman, you are performing devotion. Okay? So I want people to understand this. There's nothing spooky about it. There's nothing pseudo about that. All right. And I think I'm hearing noise. I think somebody need to mute. I think that's okay. Next, worship. What does worship mean? Worship began life as a compound noun meaning virtually worthiness. And there you go, Morpheus, worthiness. It was formed from the adjective worth and the noun suffix ship, which is a state or condition. And at first it was used for a distinction, credit, or dignity, meaning something that sticks out, stands out, dignified, has worth. This soon passed into respect and reverence, but it was not used in specifically religious context until the 13th century. The verb dates from the 12th century. Okay, so what is worship? Worship is, or to worship something is to give a, or hold something in high worth, high value again. That's why praise and worship are always seems to be used together. When people talk about it, they say praise and worship. They always use those words together in sentences or conversations because they're very closely related in concept. Worship is to give, see something as high worth, and to praise is to put a price of high value on something. Very similar concepts. So of course we're going to worship our parents. Of course we're going to worship things that we think have high worth. All right. And the last one is this one. Religion. Religion is from the Latin religio, originally meant obligation or bond. Keep that in mind. It was probably derived from the verb religare, to tie back or to tie tight, which is the source of the English rely, to rely on something. A compound formed from the prefix re, which is back, and legare, which means to tie. The source of the English liable. Remember, when you're liable to something, you're obligated to it. You're bound to it. And ligament. Your ligament on your body is a part of your body that joins two moving parts or whatever. Ligature is to join characters, ligaments, etc. It developed the specialized sense of bond between human beings and the gods. And from the 5th century, it came to be used for monastic life, the sense in which English originally acquired it via Old French religion. Religious practices emerged from this, but the word's standard modern meaning did not develop until as recently as the 16th century. Okay, this word is related to ally, liable, ligament, ligature, and rely. Okay, so in essence, a religion is an obligation. And if you obligate yourself, religion and devout or devote are very close. When you devote yourself to something, as I had here, where'd it go? Yeah. When you devote yourself from something is to basically vow. You are promising. And religion, so devote is in the sense of promising, and religion is the sense of obligating, to bind yourself to something. And so we do these kinds of things. And so everybody has a religion. And so when we use it in the context to today, people throw the gods in there in all these definitions. If you look up in dictionary, it's associated with gods. And that's where people get off into the pejorative use of these terms. Okay, that's spooky, that's pseudo. But if we use these for what they actually mean in the correct way, we'll see that it's not that deep at all. It's not a problem. And you'll start to understand these cultures of antiquity and ancient times of what they were actually doing. When they talk about the Netcher, for example, and I said this last night, I think, when you hold something that's of high value and importance, you're going to worship it because you gave it a value, gave it worth. And so when people say, okay, the Egyptians worshipped Jehudi or worshipped Heru, but they don't even know what Heru actually is in reality to the Egyptians for them to perform worship or to see the worth in it. So people in their ignorance see that as spooky or pseudo or religious. They use those words synonymously. So we got to be careful. So I just want to show y'all that on this in this discussion, so that people can have a better understanding, and hopefully people will use these words properly and correctly in their proper context, and not part of the noise, and really it comes out of ignorance, comes from a place of ignorance. And that's one of the accusations that the people on the Kemetic practitioner side is saying against those who don't. They're saying, listen, a lot of stuff you're saying is out of ignorance.
You know what's interesting about that is those are the definitions, right, of those words, right? But in a colloquial form, right, right, what they mean, people mean, okay, it's like what they mean and the definition are two different things.
Absolutely. Meaning comes from context, and that's why I said
Right.
that's why I said nomenclature. If you establish like for example, in a court of law, I don't care what you walk in there thinking the word person means. In that environment, in that context, the word person has a meaning of how they use it, and that's legal, legalese or legal jargon. And although the word person is an English word, you're going to use it differently on the street than you do in a courtroom. So what I'm saying is, despite what everybody thinks these words mean or how they use them, we have to establish a nomenclature in order to bring about clarity for these cultures, because you cannot apply these words successfully in antiquity. You can't say that somebody's religious, and then, like, for example, in ancient Egypt, there's no word for religion. There's no equation that you can come up with a word for the modern use of the word religion. So how can you label a people religious when they don't even have a matching concept? It makes no sense.
There was nothing that they was obligated to.
But see, now but wait. Oh, look what you just did. You went back to what I'm saying, the original meaning. So I'm saying,
right,
the conscious community use of the word religious, and in that meaning.
Oh, I understand what you mean. I understand that. Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm
get it.
saying.
Yeah, I was gonna say that we had the same issues as well when we started translating stuff, and we would come across things like Lord, lady, master, mistress, and some people had issues with this kind of terms like mistress. But once you put yourself in a place where you're studying these things and you understand the definition, not per what we have it in our modern times, how those words kind of evolve into mean some other things. But when you understand those words in their context, where a mistress would be some the equivalence of a male master, and a master is somebody who owns something, then it makes sense. So then it doesn't become so troublesome in that sense. But I think for other people who might be doing peripheral studies or whatever it is in this kind of things, they will look at those and then take it and then just run with it and say, oh, that's they might take the word mistress and just translate it into something like a side chick, but that's not what you do when you're trying to be very meticulous with these things. So,
well, that's like taking the word faggot, right? How people today in society use the word faggot versus what the original word faggot really is, and what it meant, what it actually really means or meant. And then, but today it takes on a whole different meaning when we use it.
Right, and so that's why people have to be mindful, and that's what I'm pointing. That's what I'm pointing out. Like Emike gave a good example, a real example of the word nebet. It's the feminine form of neb, and it's funny how we would translate neb, or scholars would translate neb as Lord, as she said, but when it comes to nebet, they don't say lordess, they say mistress. And today's use of that word mistress is, like she said, is a side chick. But these people are not side chicks. They were, I can show you the great royal wife of the king. Nebet Tawi. She's the lordess or the female owner of the two lands. And so we have to be careful. And what I'm saying is that if we're gonna ever make heads or tails of these conversations, people better get with the program and learn how to use these terms correctly. Because, like I said, spooky really means to be frightened. But look how people are using it. Now, granted, you have what's called denotation and connotation, and semantic meaning is actually born out of context. So that's granted, but it doesn't make it an effective and efficient communication tool when you abuse it, though. And that's the problem. People abuse the semantic scopes of words. They stretch them out and everything, which anybody could do, but how effective is it? How efficient is it in the whole scheme of communication? That's what people got to understand. It's not.
Man, with conversations, got to slow way down. Then, based on that, you got to really slow conversations down.
Well, that's what contracts do. Anybody who has ever signed a legal contract, in the beginning of the contract or somewhere in it, you're going to have a list of definitions of key terms. It's going to say the benefactor equals blah blah blah. The creditor is this, the debtor is this, and so on and so forth. They do it. It's known. So we got every single specific disciplines of study does it. Every field does it. The only people that don't do it is the so-called conscious community.
But here you go, as usual, shutting down the whole argument. Religion came into context as we know it, 16th century. Worship came into context as we know it, 13th century. I mean, you can't use their terminology to apply to those concepts prior to that.
Prior to that, exactly.
You gotta shut the whole thing down.
So hold up, let me go back to it. So if we go, I just showed that that religion in that context was developed recently as the 16th century. So how can you use that retroactively on a civilization that was 3000 BCE?
Sesh crew.
You know what I'm saying? So you can't do that. And we have to understand this, and like you said, Morpheus, you got to slow the conversation way down. And that's what we do. And that's what I encourage other people to do. But guess what? The environment that people have these conversations in on these platforms is not conducive for that, because it's the microwave, it's the rah-rah, it's the talk fast, it's the assume this means that. Just because this elder said that, it's crazy. But we don't, real scholars and scientists, they don't operate that way. They don't leave things for chance. And that's the difference. So anyway, we on a 3-hour mark. So I'm gonna post a link one last time in the chat. We want to get some final thoughts, some final things, on what people think about what we were talking about, because this is it. We're not talking about these conflicts anymore. We're just having a conversation. And by the way, of course it should go without saying, but obviously everything we're saying is our opinion, and everybody's entitled to their opinions, and we're giving them. But hopefully these opinions will serve as voices of reason, and maybe we can do better in the future. So but any last thoughts of people on the panel, or if you want to jump on the panel real quick from the chat, do so now.
So do you think that a mediation should take place between the shrines and who are the grievances with, some type of mediation between them in order to
Well, at this point, I would say that would be probably a good idea. At this point, yeah, because it got to this point, I see that being beneficial. Like if somebody was to mediate between all parties, get them in the same conversation, and all that kind of stuff. But that can be tricky too. But yeah, I would say yeah up front. But you know, we don't want, what we don't want is to just put band-aids on stuff. We gotta go at the cause. We gotta go at the source and causal things of stuff like this. You know.
And I think the only way to do that is, okay, we we're here for the last 3 4 days conversating about it, right? And that's cool. But the people who, well, other than Reggie, who was here, right? The people like Jabari or whoever or Baba Heru, you know, those are the guys who really should be in these conversations. Or I think, you know what I mean, because so it's cool for us to talk about it. It's for us to come up with solutions and things like that. But if the people who are the ones with the problems are not privy to the ideas and the solutions and the things that we're conversating about, then
But that's why we archiving this. Hopefully, they'll have a stamina to listen to these 3 hour videos and stuff like that. But at the same time, too, you got to remember that this didn't happen. It didn't get to this point overnight. So that's why I keep saying at this juncture, it's like already just it's gonna have to take a life. You know, it's gonna have to do what it does. You know, our conversation is really for preventive measure, like for future. You know, for what has already taken place. You know, you it's not much you can do unless those people themselves want to do it at this point. You know, because things have built up. You know, and whatnot. And who knows? Like even right now, I think the brother Unk is live. I'm not sure what's being talked about, but you know, so
we have to realize that these are just the latest players, the current players. So what, like you said, there's an evolution. It's a pattern of an ongoing thing. And at this point, we're just talking about it because these are the latest players in this particular ongoing issue. But
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I wanted to ask, like at some point we also, we have to be kind of clear, like, is this is it a scholarly issue or is it a personal issue? Because then it's easy to figure out how to how to solve them. So if it's personal, then find talk to each other through a mediator, whatever it is. Is it a scholarly issue? There's also ways to go about it, but because the lines are kind of blurred at this point. So we is it what is the issue? How can how?
As far as scholarship is concerned, you killed it. I mean, listen, you killed it about an hour and a half ago. As far as the scholarship is concerned, I'm like, wow. I was like,
you kind of dropped the mic on that. And scholarship has happened in writing. That's like the ultimate of scholarship. But you got steps. You got depending on the case by case. You handle scholarship in writing. You can do presentations, or if it's a minor issue, you can have a nice discussion with folks, and it's all in a scholarly domain. When it gets outside of that, it's something different. A lot of people don't know how to do it, and that's the problem. And so
just
even
the atmosphere, that whole atmosphere, man, where this stuff is taking place, that wool, like you said, that atmosphere is toxic. It's toxic, man.
And that's the thing, and you got to look at what people want to do, because now listen, psychologically, you can be so close to something that you no longer see it. And as the comedian, I forgot the sister's name, but she's a comedian, and she says something like, if you sit in shit too long, you stop smelling it. And that's to say that if you get so used to something, you become numb to it, and you can't even see that's going on, and it takes an outside voice to kind of pull things back together and stuff like that. So when you said mediator, like, I'm just saying we got to be careful of not to do the Band-Aid thing, because I've seen a lot of things get mediated, but it's still a problem over and over again, over and over again. So we got to really hit it at the core. We got to cure this. We can't just put a band-aid and treat the symptoms. We got to actually go for the cure at this point. And
It would be dope. I'm
Mhm.
sorry.
Oh no, I was just saying, and hopefully, between all these three conversations, we said something that resonates with somebody, and we just act on it, at least for the future. But I want everybody to kind of give their closing sentiments or whatever, and then I want to close with something, it's coming from as far as the Seshu stance on this hoopla shenanigans. But go ahead.
I was just gonna say it would be dope if it could happen. Not on any social media platforms. This all I have is YouTube, and I'm new to this. I wouldn't even be on the panel if me and Sean wasn't in the chat, like going back and forth. And he was like, "Well, get on the panel," and I just came on the panel. So like I've never had any Facebook or any Instagram, so I understand what it could do to people. You know what I mean? So it would be dope if y'all could have a conversation behind the scenes, since egos are so big, and then come to a consensus, and then get on somebody's channel and do that. That would be really cool, because I think I don't know.
I'm sorry, I muted him.
Okay. Yeah, so I was thinking it would be dope if y'all could just do that, and then, get on somebody's platform, and then speak about, not even really speak about what you're talking about behind the scenes, but just come to a common understanding or a place behind the scenes. And then, because after that, then I think for a long time we could just it would catapult this whole sort of, this sort of scholarly conversation into a whole nother area, and people will be more receptive to learning from the Seshu, and learning the literature, and actually just, I don't know, sort of, it would just be done in a different way, because egos are so big and it's so strange. Like when I see it, like again, like I didn't even know Sanjeti or Sar and you. I just thought everybody was still, cool, because I kind of tuned out for a minute. And now I'm like, damn, everybody kind of broke up. I'm like, I didn't understand. So I wish everybody could really kind of come together to, sort of push it forward. Because when you look at it, it seemed like just that divided like that, just as we're divided like that, but we're still going in the same direction, headed for the, with the same goal in mind, just on a whole different path with a whole different route. Like, so I really didn't know what I wanted to say, except just the fact that it would be dope if the conversation could happen off of the screen first, or off of social media platforms, and then bring it together, because that would just be something dope for everybody to see.
Well, let me just make sure that nobody misconstrued something you just said. We're cool. Me, Sanjeti, Asar, everybody on the squad. So
okay, I think I meant Kansu, because Kansu was kind of rocking with everybody as well, and Ngozi, and I don't know what happened.
Oh yeah, that's a whole nother thing. Yeah, but I'm saying, I'm just want to say, because who you said, I don't want people to think.
My bad. I was naming. I just looked again. I looked at y'all from 2013, 14, and people kind of tight. To me, that's what it seemed like. But again, I was just on YouTube, and I would just be listening. And so,
okay.
I just sort of threw some names out there, but yeah, I meant Ngozi.
Man, let me tell you, everybody got the same goal in mind, but people got different ways of getting there. You know what I mean? Everybody have different paths of getting to the same place. I hate to sound like a Christian, but like, my father's house has many mansions.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
No, I hate to sound like Jesus myself, and just saying like, I wish everybody could get along. Like I'm just being real, being transparent. I don't really care. I wish everybody could just. Yeah.
I feel you on that, brother.
So anybody else? Any closing?
Say what?
Any closing thoughts? We're gonna close it out.
My last little thought, I pretty much agree with Emicat. Next month will be new players and new definitions.
You said next month? Yeah. See, we spoke on that on the first night's discussion, right? Yep. So
Yeah, I would just like to close out by saying, I really appreciate, this whole conversation and how, it will slow down, which is what, I think everybody kind of starts to realize that you just have to slow things down, and we can't microwave certain types of conversation. And obviously we can't also use this particular conversations for just some negative ulterior motives, like when we're talking about the elephant in the room. We can't be using scholarship for entertainment. There's a place for entertainment, there's a place for scholarship, and we have to kind of understand that, because people on it, we can't it's almost like disrespecting the audiences and assuming that they cannot take or understand scholarship unless it's diluted a little bit with entertainment. So we have to give people a chance to graduate towards proper scholarship, and also have them have proper places for entertainment, and yeah, I don't want to get long winded, but yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So I think it was good that we had that conversation.
Yeah. Anybody else? Because I'm gonna wrap it up. Well, I know Kofi, you just joined in, and I don't know if you want to. I know you probably didn't tune in to. We've been on for 3 hours, so and you may have something to close out with. Overall, basically, this is the last time, final part 3. We're not bringing this up anymore in this context, at least. So we've done our part.
Hey, whoa, real quick, look at what I sent you, man. You gotta make that your intro and your outro, man.
Okay,
I just sent you.
I'll check it out. So Kofi, you got any thing? I see you driving.
Yeah.
Oh boy, here come Transformer Kofi, boy.
God, hold on, man. I don't know what. I hear me better now.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, you're good
All
now.
right, I don't know what it is, man. That my Uconnect on my what's the name on my radio be messing up, I reckon. But no, I missed the whole show. But these last 3, the last 2, I was able to catch the last hour or so on it, man. I think it was a well needed discussion that we had, and I guess these series done sprung me. I'm gonna do something hopefully tomorrow, or something called "What's Wrong with Starting Your Own ATR." So something like what I touched on last night about how we've been creating our own tradition since time immemorial. So I'm just gonna show a little path of how we created things again, how we created our traditions, and then how they spread it out, and they reformed or were influenced by this, and this culture created or this tradition sprung this tradition. So I'm gonna start in Africa, go to South Africa, the Caribbean, and here in America, and show how we took traditions and went elsewhere, and those traditions that we started our own traditions. You may see some elements of what we had and where we were, and then when we migrated, we actually created our own, gave it our own name, gave it our own spin. So I'm gonna do something on that tomorrow. Again, it's called What's Wrong with Starting Your Own ATRs.
Okay, that'd be interesting. So be sure to tune in and check that out. So I'm just gonna wrap it up then.
Hold on, bro. You always like that.
Oh! I'm sorry. I thought you already went. I thought.
Yeah, you just came back.
I thought I was asleep. I was not asleep, sister. Why you say
that?
Okay. We
all. Come on, just be honest. You weren't doing what?
All right, but yeah, go ahead. I'll go after you.
Yeah, I think ultimately the bottom line is humility. But I do, ultimately I do think that in the long run we have to move towards a common, culture, because ultimately, that's what's going to kind of resolve all this stuff. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, yeah. All right. I appreciate, listen, all 3 nights, I appreciate everybody who's tuned in. Some of people, some of the people in the chat are returned for all three parts to our conversation. Some people may have missed something in here tonight, so I appreciate everybody because we came on unannounced for really all three sessions, and it's late, and it was during the weekday, so we really appreciate the participation. People that jumped on the panel, appreciate it. I really appreciate. Now notice that we don't have any posted moral ethic code on the side, or in order to enter you gotta agree to this, that, and the third. But look how we conducted ourselves on the panel for all three nights. You see what I'm saying? That should be applauded, especially in a time like this. It shouldn't. It should be the norm, but in this climate, that needs to be noted. You know, how we can be the model for having a conversation, because everybody on this panel we don't know each other all like that. Some of us are more familiar, but between all 3 days, from the chat to the panel, we came together and had a nice conversation, even if we disagreed. But for the most part, I think everybody agreed. Even the brother Reggie came on and was able to say some things firsthand because his name is involved. It would have been nice to have somebody like Sanjetti on tonight, and that's not to his fault at all. I should have reached out to him and asked him to come on, and maybe he could have explained a few things. But for this side of things, I don't think that was necessary. And actually, Reggie coming on, he wasn't he wasn't sent like an invitation to come on. He came on, just like anybody else could. So, which was good, But I want to say this: when it comes to the Sesh, right? We deal with the ancient Egyptian civilization, Kemet, okay, the Nile Valley and the Delta, and we engage it by way of its language. We actually follow the instructions of Dr. Theophilo Benga and other scholars, and it just makes the most sense. So that's what we do, and so we deal with it in a very scholarly, scientific way, and I just want to make people to make note that we're not caught up in the shenanigans as a group. We're not. That's not our interest, and that's not how we get down. And we do what we do outside of all that kind of stuff. But because it involves Kemet and the culture and stuff like that, it's within our domain of conversation, and so that's why we're having this conversation. All right. But if you join our Facebook group or you come to our channels, you'll see how we operate, how we deal with different things. Like, for example, when you join our Facebook group, we tell people, come join the group where mdw-ntr, which means eloquent speech, is encouraged, where you can count on beneficial discussions related to the languages and culture of Kemet. Each one teach one, as we're all learning together, expanding our knowledge, application, and building good ked, which means character. We are the ones with folded arms and bended backs. We are the mature ones. We are the disciplined ones. We are the Seshu Ma'ani Netcher. That is what you'll read when you join our Facebook group as a description of who we are, and as far as the group is concerned. And so we try to be that. We don't have to say it. If it, you can see that in us, and that's what we hope that you all perceive from all of us as a collective group. Now, of course, individuals may have their own things and how everybody does, but for the whole, that's the point of being part of a collective, is that you become responsible, and that's something that's innate in culture. Like, for example, if you live in a household and let's say it's 8 of you all, 2 parents and siblings. If one of you go out of the house and cut a fool, you're going to embarrass the whole household, even though it's just you. And so the sense of belonging to a larger group outside of individualism is a natural way of keeping you in check, because you feel responsible, and you know that the perception is not just going to be you, it's going to be on your whole family or your whole community or your whole group if you're a member of something. And so that's why we encourage group involvement, teams, because now it takes the selfishness out of it. It's a way to cultivate selflessness when you are a part of a team. Okay, so always remember that. And so, like I said, this is the last time we're gonna bring these topics up in this context, but we're gonna keep it moving and keep it rolling on this channel. So I appreciate the super chat contributions. It's something we just rolled out. So if you want to support, you know, anytime you can use a super chat or join our Facebook group. And I have classes being formulated for the beginner's introduction to Sesh, Medew, Netcher right now for the month of January. And matter of fact, let me just put that final flyer up before we leave out of here, so you all can see the information and go to the website sableuniversity.com. All right. So we're formulating the group right now, so it's not too late or anything like that. You can register. Go ahead and register, and it's self-paced, and we'll come together once a week for 2 hours for 12 weeks, and we'll make sure you're straight. All right. So I don't know what else to say outside of that. I hope that people had takeaways from what we've been talking about and discussing. And I hope that people will perceive our conversation as being fair, although it's our opinions, but we have no intention of shedding negative light on an individual or personal shots or anything like that. You know, we try to discuss it, you know, the way that it's unveiled itself to us, you know, as onlookers, seeing all this stuff transpire. All right. So hopefully nobody's offended or anything like that. I guess that's it. So I'm gonna say Shimon Hotep, and I again I appreciate the panel, and I'll see you all next time.
Peace.
All right, per usual, I've ended the Zoom, and now it's just me. So again, to the chat, appreciate it. We got 48,000 people still watching, and well, let me do this as a last question. For those of you who are still watching in the chat and didn't fall asleep, if you felt, I want to take a little quick poll. Type 1 if you felt overall that these 3 discussions we had was, at least productive or a beneficial way of taking an assessment of things and possibly having some takeaways. So press 1 if you felt that these were some pretty good discussions, basically. And I only have to say press 2 for something, but just press 1, type 1 if that's the case, if you feel that way. I just want to see something real quick. All right, I'm seeing ones. Well, I didn't call off another number, but hopefully that's a good sign. All right, so again, appreciate everybody's turnout, and hopefully there's some takeaways. So I'll see y'all next time.